Good evening and welcome commissioners, applicants, and interested parties to the May 1st, 2025 meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. My name is Valerio Romano. I'm the chair of the commission and will be running tonight's meeting as we implement the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Chapter 260 of the Cohasset Bylaws governing wetlands protection, and Chapter 263 of the Cohasset Bylaws governing stormwater management. The Conservation Commission meeting is now in session and being held on Zoom. If you have any questions for the commission, please type them in the Q&A section of the Zoom app. Please include your name and address to be recognized. When called, please limit your discussion to 3 minutes. Present this evening on behalf of the Conservation Commission is the town's conservation agent, Charlotte Pechtel. And Charlotte, is Mindy on too?
Not yet, but she should be.
Okay. And then Administrative Assistant Melinda Wall will be joining us shortly. I'll now take a roll call vote of the Conservation Commissioners. Please respond by repeating your name and saying present. Commissioner Tom Bell.
Tom Bell, present.
Kathy Berrigan.
Kathy Berrigan, present.
Chris McIntyre.
Chris McIntyre, present.
Steve Magnell.
Steve Magnell, present.
And Valerio Romano, present. Right now, we have a quorum of 5 commissioners. First, we have a continued permit discussion for the Ashtons at 125 Doane Street, NOI 21-29 and DEP number 135352. The way we're going to handle this is I'm going to take a vote to close the public portion of the hearing. Then Ms. Pechtel will read the conditions that have been approved by council. Then we'll discuss the conditions among the commissioners and think if we need to make any amendments, if any are appropriate. Then we'll take a vote on the conditions as may be amended. No further input from the public or the property owners is necessary. The only commissioners able to vote on this are Tom Bell, Chris McIntyre, Kathy Berrigan, and myself. I make a motion to close the public portion of the hearing. Do I have a second?
Tom Bell, second.
Let's do a roll call vote. Commissioner Bell?
Tom Bell, aye.
Commissioner Berrigan?
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Commissioner McIntyre?
Chris McIntyre, aye.
And Valerio Romano, aye. Steve, I think you're out for this one, just okay, the public portion of the hearing is now closed. Charlotte, please read the conditions as approved by council.
Absolutely, one sec. My computer is lagging, so apologies in advance. So as our chair mentioned, we, following up from the last discussion, we did review the conditions with town council, and Will was given these conditions as well. So with that, I'll just read them. With the mitigation planting plan that was previously presented to the commission, we would be voting to approve this plan with the following conditions. The applicant shall work with a professional wetland scientist on the implementation of the approved planting plan to ensure proper planting locations for long-term survivability. The total of 27 plants shown on the planting plan shall be planted at a rate of approximately 1/3 of the total plantings per year and shall not be reduced in quantity in the 1,500-foot buffer zones. The planting plan includes 14 Salix discolor, 8 Vaccinium gustifolium, and 5 Ilex opaca. However, native species substitutions for the proposed plants may be considered if acceptable to both the professional wetland scientist and the agent. And then last but not least, in addition to the approved mitigation plan, 6 native shade trees of at least 2 to 3 inches in caliber if deciduous and/or at least 6 to 8 feet in height if coniferous shall be planted by the end of 2025 growing season and planting season. Some are within or near the Beechwood Doane Street intersection area on town property with coordination and approval from the Tree and Parks foreman. Selection of the native species shall come from the commission's approved planting lists. The planting shall be maintained by the town.
So one thing, Charlotte, go up to condition 1.
Yep.
Sorry, condition 2. There probably a comma would have been helpful, but 1/3 of the total plantings per year in the 50 and 100-foot buffer, and none of the plantings shall be reduced in quantity. So it's not that there's a reduction in quantity allowed outside of the 50 and 100. Just to make the first sentence clear, it's 27 plants.
I'm sorry. Did you wanted a comma where? Here?
Yeah, and then maybe and then after quantity as well.
that
will
sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So let's discuss these conditions with the commission. Commissioner Bell, what are your thoughts?
I find them acceptable.
Commissioner Berrigan,
So I read them previously and I also think they're acceptable.
Commissioner McIntyre?
I find them acceptable.
So do I. So I'll take a vote to approve these conditions for the existing permit as authorized under the existing permit conditions that would be amenable to the commission and through the agent. Do I have a second?
Tom Bell,
Second.
second.
Roll call vote, Commissioner Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Commissioner Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
and Valerio Romano, aye. That hearing is closed. These are the conditions. Let's move on to the next public hearing.
Hey, guys, I gotta leave.
Hey, thanks, Tom, for making the time.
Thank
Have
you.
a great-
Thank you,
Have a
Tom.
great other meeting.
Take care.
Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, take care. So I'd like to announce that Commissioner Sanji Fernando's on. Sanji, can you say your name and say present?
Sanji Fernando, present.
Great, welcome, Sanji. Okay, so hold on, give me 1 second. I apologize. Next, we have NOI 2509. In accordance with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing tonight, now, Thursday, May 1st, 2025, for NOI 2509 to construct a sidewalk with 2 connecting crosswalks at and along Pond Street for the town of Cohasset. The public has been invited to offer input by emailing cpectel@cohassetma.gov. Details for access to the Zoom platform are on the commission agenda online at cohassetma.org in the meeting and hearing notices. One moment. The public hearing is now open. Charlotte, is anyone from the applicant team available?
Hi, Brian. So we have
Hi.
Brian Joyce, our DPW director, and Jeff Hassett from Morse Engineering.
Hey, Jeff. Hey, Brian.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight. So I'm just giving a brief intro before turning it over to Jeff. So we're talking about a sidewalk project from King Street, on Pond Street, from King Street to Route 3A. This sidewalk project has been a long-term goal of the town through the master plan, and more recently through the it's brought forward to you tonight with the Sidewalk Safety and Connectivity Committee. There's letters of support from that committee, letters of support from the select board, and several resident petitions in the area. This project dovetails into the Mass DOT project that was before you in the past few months, where they're constructing a sidewalk from Pond Street to Sawyer Street on Route 3A. So this sidewalk will connect to that system as well. And finally, this project not only helps with pedestrian safety, but it'll also clean up the runoff coming from the road into the wetland in that area, which now it just runs off, and it'll be catched or in a catch basin and treated before it gets discharged. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff for the technical portion. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Brian. Charlotte, if Jay Pimpere is on the call, can you promote him as well? Jay is with the Sidewalk Safety and Connectivity Committee.
Yes, I was looking for him, but I don't see him right now. I don't know if he's calling in on an iPhone or.
Okay, he said he might be calling in late. He was
Oh, okay.
for another meeting, so if
Okay.
you see.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye out.
Okay. All right, so Jeff Hassett here with Morse Engineering. I'll share the plan. There we go. And there have been support letters submitted by the select board and the sidewalk committee. And my understanding is that the project is funded. It was funded at the town meeting in spring of last year, 2024. On behalf of the town, we filed a notice of intent and a stormwater permit to construct a sidewalk on Pond Street. And the location of Pond Street is the westerly side of 3A, extending from King Street, the intersection of King Street, and then on the second page, all the way to, zoom out a little bit here, all the way to Route 3A or CJC Highway. The length is about 1,000 feet, and the sidewalk at this point ties into the existing sidewalk where there's a crosswalk across 3A at the light, and then the sidewalk continues down the easterly side of Pond Street all the way to the high school and beyond. So it's a really critical connection. This area sees a lot of foot traffic by both kids and adults with the school there. So in the existing conditions, Pond Street is obviously a paved road. The majority of the road slopes down towards 3A and then runs off into the wetland on the side of the road here. We had that wetland flagged by Environmental Consulting and Restoration in November of 2024, prior to doing the field survey here. And the proposed work is, it's a 4-foot wide sidewalk, and we're keeping it tight to the side of the side of the road to minimize disturbance. And we provided you with 2 cross sections. So further west down Pond Street, where we're outside of the wetland buffer, we're going to provide a 12-inch Cape Cod berm that's a paved curb, followed by a 2-foot grass strip, and then the sidewalk. When we get down closer to the wetland buffer and immediately adjacent to the wetland, we tighten up that profile, that cross section, and we're doing a vertical curb right at the edge of the existing pavement, and then a 4-foot wide sidewalk. So to just keep everything as far away from the wetland as possible. As far as wetland impact, the majority of the sidewalk is outside of the 100-foot buffer, but we are asking for a waiver for the portions of the work that are in the 50-foot buffer. However, all of the work is in areas that are on the immediately on the shoulder of the road, within 5 or 6 feet of the pavement. So it's all previously degraded, developed, filled areas. There's no mature vegetation that needs to be removed. And the only wetland impact, it's a small impact of about 100 square feet right here. And the reason for that is that we're putting in a stormwater treatment device and an outlet, where currently in that location, there's just a paved inlet. And so as mitigation here, currently all of the runoff flows untreated into the wetland. And we're retrofitting all of the existing catch basins with hoods. So what that does is, the catch basins all have a deep sump, so all the solids settle to the bottom, but they don't have a hood. And what the hood does is it prevents anything that floats, so grease and trash, from flowing out and into the wetland. And then those are cleaned periodically by the DPW. In addition to that, where there's a paved inlet, we're installing a storm scepter particle separator. And that's essentially a catch basin that has an insert that really provides the highest level of treatment for a small footprint area. And then we'll also providing an erosion barrier along the limit of work. So for that small alteration area, we are providing a 2-to-1 mitigation area. And just to kind of reiterate, this is really an essential project for public safety. It's a critical connection from one side of the town to the other. And we feel we've designed it in such a way that it'll actually improve the existing conditions with that mitigation. So with that, I'll pass it back to you. We'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Great explanation. Charlotte, did the other person show up that Jeff?
Yeah, so we do have Paul Grady from our Board of Selectmen, and I think the iPhone, I believe that's Jay. Jay, can you unmute and just confirm if that is you?
I spoke to Jay earlier.
Hi, thank you, Charlotte. Yeah. Jay Pimpari here, 713 Jerusalem Road, Chair of the Sidewalk and Safety Connectivity Committee. I just want to echo Brian and Jeff's comments about the safety aspect of this. This has been a long-standing priority of the town and the newly created Sidewalk Commission to not only create additional sidewalks, not for the sake of creating sidewalks, but to create connectivity. And what the sidewalk will do is allow children and residents that live in the Pond Street area and King Street area, connectivity to the high school and an existing and soon to be constructed sidewalk along 3A there. So this is really a huge benefit to the residents of the town. We understand that a variance is being requested, but I personally believe in this situation, this is exactly what a rare and unusual circumstance is, and it's for the protection of the safety of the residents and children that are in the area.
Thank you very much. Paul, did you have anything else you wanted to add too?
I really want to second the chair, Jay Pampari, Valerio. This is not a project that we're asking for any variance for one individual, but it is for safety and safety alone. A lot of kids traverse that. When you mention connectivity, it's to the schools primarily, which is the genesis of the Roads and Sidewalks Committee, is connectivity to the schools is where we started. So as I just want to emphasize, the select board is fully in support of this. And again, it's basically the good of the many. It's not just a singular project, and it's we hope to minimize any asks, but this is an important one, we feel.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm just, my kids actually live on King Street, and this actually connects to the middle and the high school. So it's not even just the high school, it's also the middle school. So it's you know, my kids live around the corner and would be absolutely using the sidewalk, whether on bikes or walking. I think it's a great idea. But I guess there's a couple of things that we need to consider. One, for the waiver that's being requested, what analysis was done for, you know, any alternatives, which is sort of a requirement that we have to consider? And that might be a question for Jeff. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, there's wetlands on both sides of the road in that location. So, you know, if we consider putting it on the other side of the road, but we're connecting to the sidewalk we're connecting to is on, you know, this side. So there would have to be a crosswalk in close proximity to 3A, which in my opinion wouldn't be safe. And there's also numerous obstructions on the other side of the road. So other than that, we also considered other, you know, further levels of treatment, like infiltration basins and such. But with the small area and the location of the wetland, there's really those wouldn't be feasible.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, Jeff, as well. On the opposite side of the street where was an alternative was the several utility poles that would need to be moved, a fence, and you can see the tree on the drawing we're looking at here. A couple of mature trees would need to be removed.
So as far as impact to a resource area, is it safe to say that the project on this side is less impact?
Yeah, it certainly is. You know, all the work is on the shoulder of the road, an area that was historically filled. And the only impact to the wetland itself is installing an outlet to a structure where we're now treating the runoff, so it's now clean runoff. So yeah, the wetland impact is minimal, and it's for the reason to treat the water. And we are providing a 2-to-1 mitigation area for that.
And then let me ask you this: so there was a mention of DPW coming through, or was it our DPW? I mean, it sounded like from the explanation that there were almost 2 filters or things that needed to be cleaned out. Is that correct? There was one that you mentioned, sort of a grease kind of, you know, filter, as well as the larger one. Is there a particular schedule set for that? Is there, you know, advice of the manufacturer as to how often it needs to be done? Is there a way we're going to stay on top of making sure that that gets done so there's the least impact possible to the resource area, to the wetland?
Yeah, I'll answer that one, Jeff. So yeah, we have other storm scepters similar to this one in various areas around town. There's a few in the town parking lot, some other ones by the schools, and those are maintained annually with our it's a requirement of our NIPDES permit and our MS4 stormwater permit. So it's a budgeted line and a regular maintenance line, and catch basins also are on the annual maintenance.
Okay, so both things are on the annual maintenance plan, and that's sufficient for what's being done there.
Yes, and it's, typically some areas, if we find a lot more sediment and such, we hit those more frequently, but it's on our annual maintenance, and I don't anticipate these will be more frequent, but, we do have 3A there, and maybe we'll find that we're actually catching a lot more that won't be going into the wetlands.
I feel like it might slope down towards 3A there instead of the other way around, right at that juncture also. I'm taking a look here. It's hard to see it. But I mean, that's great. I think that's a great explanation. It's obviously a really important project for the town. We still have to, do our due diligence and be thoughtful, particularly the fact that it actually is an impact directly on the wetlands and we have this waiver. So Charlotte, for now, before we, run through the commissioners and see what thoughts there are, Charlotte, what else should we be considering?
Sure, yeah. So there are a couple variance and waiver requests that were and will be submitted with this project. I did send a list of comments, and I did recommend that for now, I recommended they just hold off on fully responding to them to get the commission's initial input, but I'll just kind of summarize some of the variance forms that they either have submitted or will need to submit. Obviously, the work within the 50-foot buffer. So that variance form, I believe, has been submitted, but then they will need to submit an additional variance request for some of our regulation requirements in terms of bordering land subject to flooding. There is sorry, I can't see from the plan, but there's a small alteration of bordering land subject to flooding, and they are proposing to put some of that compensatory flood storage back. They just can't fully meet our resource area replication requirements of 2:1. So they will be requesting a variance formally for that in future submission documents. And then last but not least, for the stormwater standards, under standards 2 and 3, Jeff, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe the project currently, is equal to or lesser than the post calculation rate and runoff volumes for either some or all of the stormwater events. So they have requested a waiver of those stormwater standards, and they did submit that with the stormwater application. And our regulations, do acknowledge that a waiver could be granted. It's just, it's up to the commission.
Thank you, Charlotte. So there's a couple more variance forms that need to come to us before we're in a position to take a vote on this.
The bordering land subject to flooding one, I think it's definitely a formality in terms of submitting a waiver for that, but they did acknowledge via email that they will be, submitting the paperwork for it, but they are requesting it as part of this project.
Okay. So Tom's gone, Commissioner Berrigan. What do you think about the project?
I think the project has been very carefully planned, especially it has minimal impact on the wetlands, a small portion, and it's a much needed change for everybody. It's a safety issue, and for me, safety is first. And I think it's actually with the small impact that it has on the wetlands, I think it's fabulous to get all this and have such a small impact. And I am for it 100%.
Thank you, Kathy. Commissioner Magnell.
I'm for this. It does seem to be the best alternative for going down the street there, although it would have been nice if it had been on the other side, but I understand the sidewalk issue crossing 3A, and so the fact that it managed to stay out of the resource is actually quite an achievement for this plan. Also, I also noticed that it was pointed out in the stormwater submission that the maintenance does come under the town's overall maintenance plan. So,
thanks, Steve. Commissioner McIntyre.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm also supportive of the sidewalk project. I just want to note and have a couple questions about the well, first of all, noting that this is the intermittent stream is Peppermint Brook, which is like a smaller but part of a subwatershed which feeds to Fresh Pond, Lily Pond. So my question is, and kind of my concern is whether or not it was considered just to potentially put a portion of the sidewalk on that stretch up to Bailey Road perhaps, and then a crossover. I went through there and drove up there. I saw the sloping, I saw the difficulty of the trees, all the utility poles on that side of the street, but this section where it does kind of come right up against the wetland, my main concern is just like, you know, waste, dog waste, that sort of thing going right into that wetland there. That was kind of flagged as the most impactful watershed to lily pond nutrient loading in the limnology report. This and one of the main reasons was, you know, like pet waste and basically just that sort of stuff. So that's kind of just anecdotal note and just information. There used to be a couple of rain gardens that were installed right along Pond Street in that wetland. They're not really identifiable anymore, but that was an effort to reduce nutrient loading to Lily Pond. So I'm just kind of noting that this isn't just a wetland. It's kind of a very, you know, impactful to our water resource. And even though, you know, the zone A is over there, that intermittent stream, which is Peppermint Brook, feeds directly to Lily Pond. So that's just kind of another level beyond just the fact that it's a wetland, kind of another level of concern for me and reason to really take a good look at trying to, you know, maybe get at least portion of the sidewalk, or at least exploring the options to get to the other side, at least maybe on that section there.
Thanks, Chris.
There's
So,
something that-
sorry, well, I was gonna say, I mean, to the extent we would definitely respond, but given the fact that we have at least one other public hearing on this because of, you know, the additional variance requests, don't feel obligated to necessarily completely satisfy Chris's concern at the, you know, immediately, because we're going to be talking about this further. But I also, we're not trying to ignore it either, because it's a really, you know, it's really a good analysis of the situation there. So I don't know, Jeff, Brian, anybody who wants to, you know, respond to Chris now, but I think we also have another opportunity to, you know, to get into more detail as to how we're going to prevent the harm that Chris is pointing out.
Sure, no, I mean, valid points.
Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
No, both valid points, and we walked the site several times. You know, we had mentioned before, so the utility poles, if we went on the other side, we wouldn't be taking land. It's within the layout, but there's a fence there. We would have to move back from the residents. Well, it looks like their front yard, but it's those two trees, and also it would be cost prohibitive to our budget to move the utility poles. We're probably talking 10 to 15,000 per pole. It's fiber optic and other utilities through there, which would probably, well, at least this year, until we budget it again in the future, would make it kind of a non-starter. And, you know, as the project cleans up the runoff going on that side, you know, we're hoping to put it on the south side here. So I mean, we can definitely talk about that further, and I can narrow down those costs of utility poles and identify exactly, you know, what we're talking about. But that was taken into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, that would be helpful. That sort of information, just to at least document and show that the alternative, even a portion of the alternative was considered. And if you could present us with a little bit more of that information, that would be helpful.
Hey, Chris, thank you. Jeff, before you chime in, so it's one thing to talk about the cost prohibitive nature, and that, you know, there was another sidewalk project, just a little connector actually on the school property that sort of, I haven't heard further about, and I was really hoping that would get picked back up. We didn't want to overburden that one either. We want to get this one done, but maybe there's some, practical way we can, prevent the harm as far from a design standpoint, more than just saying this is why it has to be there, as opposed to the other side. And then, then the harm just is going to happen. So, to keep the runoff, the dog poops from going in, and whatnot. Jeff, do you have any other thoughts about that?
Yeah, it was certainly something we considered from the get-go of the project. We had a site visit last fall, I believe it was, with Charlotte and Brian and myself and Greg Morse from my office, and we walked the entire length. And we talked about the option of putting the sidewalk on the opposite side here. Another reason why it's really not ideal is the sidewalk we're connecting to is on the south side of Pond Street, and that's where the crosswalk is too. So we'd have to have a crosswalk across Pond Street in close proximity to that intersection where you have cars, whipping around that corner. Safety-wise, I wouldn't be comfortable with that. And then as far as design standards too, the cross section for the sidewalk shows a 2% cross pitch back towards the roadway. So anything that lands on the sidewalk will slope back to the road, and then it's going to be treated by those retrofitted catch basins and the particle separator.
That's helpful. Actually, that's the kind of, that last piece of information is particularly helpful. So,
Mr. Chair, we do have some hands raised in the audience. Just wanted to remind you. So whenever we get to,
let's do those. I also wanted to mention that Melinda Wall did join. Hi, Mindy. But yeah, Charlotte, go ahead. Chris McFarlane looks like. Hey, Chris, been a while.
Hey, Chris.
Hello, Chris McFarlane, 50 Reservoir Road in Cohasset. I'd just like to make a couple comments. I'm all in favor of sidewalks. I'm all in favor of students using the sidewalks to get to and from school. I would like to point out to the commission that once this particular sidewalk project connects to the existing sidewalk, it then crosses 3A and kind of ends in no man's land. Now, I assume there's some improvements with the work on 3A, although there currently is a very small traffic island on the opposite side of 3A that then has the driveway going into Bill's Automotive. And then from there up to Clay Spring Road is the continuation of the sidewalk, which then crosses Pond Street. And although I understand there's a limitation of funding, I think it would be worth looking at that. The piece of sidewalk from 3A to Clay Spring was redone when they did some work at the intersection of Clay Spring and Pond. The existing sidewalks are they're not designed very well. There's considerable fall off from those sidewalks to a point where if someone tripped or steered their bicycle, they would end up in traffic. And then they have to cross Pond Street to get to the sidewalk that continues up to the middle high school. So I would recommend strongly that this is looked at in its entirety, understanding, of course, that it ties into an existing condition and what's ever going to happen on 3A, because what you don't want to do is spend all this money creating a great sidewalk, but having it funnel into a couple really bad conditions. I'm not sure those conditions can be improved. They could be improved on the other side of the street, which might start to weigh whether or not having it on the other side of the street becomes more beneficial. And then just as a last comment, I would like to say that, and I was on the commission at a time when Sawyer Street sidewalk went in. The sidewalk is a beautiful sidewalk. But it seems now that it's approximately, I'm going to guess 5 years since that project first went in front of the commission, and the project's not complete. The planting was never done. The silt stock is still there. It would be really nice if that project was finished before this one got started. So that's all. Thank you very much, Commission.
Thanks, Chris. We miss you. So, I don't know if Brian or Jeff, these are all, important considerations. And like I said, we're gonna have another hearing on this. I don't know if we have to necessarily satisfy former Commissioner McFarland's concerns right now, but if there's anything that you could speak to respond to him, I think it would be welcome. Important considerations.
Yeah, I would definitely take a look at those. The other, he's talking about the other side of Pond Street going up towards the high school. I wasn't aware of hazardous conditions, but I will walk it, this week and take a look at that. I think the slope that he's referring to is in front of the middle high school, where it kind of slopes down. There's a steep grass slope to where the street is. I don't know how we didn't prove that. It has all been paved recently. It's got the ADA compliant 4 feet minimum width. We'll take a look at that. Sawyer Street, I'll talk with Charlotte after the meeting to see. I wasn't aware there were conditions that haven't been met. I thought it was 100% complete.
Thanks, Brian. It looks like Selectman Grady has got his hand raised.
Thank you very much, Larry. I just wanted to add there that this is an area that's much more traversed, because of the activity going up to the middle and high school than, say, Sawyer Street. I traverse Sawyer Street every day. It's a beautiful sidewalk. It's a beautiful area. I just want to emphasize that our focus is on safety. And it looks to me, with a smaller area, and we've mapped this out, is that the effect is minimal, and we're trying to keep it that way. As Brian said earlier, we're pulling the sidewalk as much towards the street as possible. But I just want to emphasize again to the board, the commission, I'm sorry, it's a safety factor. There's a lot more children up in that area coming down, bikes, traversing, and we know that that area is between there and the Beechwood lights are problematic at best with traffic. And so we're just trying to save lives. I just want to emphasize that, because no one wants to put in a sidewalk unnecessarily. This is one that will be thoroughly used, and I can't speak enough to that. And that's pretty much what I have to say, and thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think, as Chris McFarland said, no one has any opposition to the sidewalk. It's just kind of looking at it in its totality and making sure that we do our jobs as we've been appointed by you to do. So I appreciate that. Before we continue with Jeff, did you have anything else?
No, but that's it. And thank you for listening to me.
Oh yeah, thanks, Paul. Jeff Hassett, did you have anything else?
No, I don't have anything else to. Sounds like we have to get back to you with some a waiver request for the BLSF, so we'll take care of that.
And then whether it's just a narrative or if there's some a further plan that would really specify the alternatives that have been considered. I think I don't want to disregard Commissioner McIntyre's concerns about Peppermint Brook and affecting the greater waters of Cohasset. So whatever else you can do to button that up so that one, it's in the application and the record, but also really to satisfy the concern. I think that might be useful too.
Sure, we can do that.
We're not trying to bankrupt the town with extreme engineering costs, but at the same time, he did make a really good point there about this is not just just any old wetland that we're protecting, but it is sort of fundamental to the town. So let's make sure we respond to that. With that, Charlotte or the applicant, the town, what's the appropriate date to continue this to?
Val, before we
Yes.
continue, two other
Yes,
comments
of course,
for,
Chris.
for when they come back. I know on Sawyer Street, they used impervious pavement and wanted to just have some information on that consideration, what their, you know, pros, cons, or does it go with the system that they're proposing or what? And then secondly, the curb, I'm not sure what the benefit is if the whole sidewalk is pitched to the street, what the vertical curb benefit is. I think there's been reports to Charlotte on the Sawyer Street project that the curb, and it's which is a vertical, like 5-inch vertical granite type curb, which is what they're proposing here, has been an impediment to wetland species, turtles, I think, specifically during when they're going back and forth for whatever reason. But so those two things, and the pervious pavement and is the curb really necessary there? Or is it a safety issue, or is it what the rationale is?
Yeah, I'll take the first stab and then I'll hand it off to Jeff. So the pervious pavement, so pervious pavement, it's a cool product, but I don't think it has it's not a good product for long stretches of municipal sidewalk for number one, cost reasons and maintenance reasons. Number two, the granite curbing was for safety, pedestrian safety. It's a very tight sidewalk, tight to the street, so it does provide a level of protection for pedestrians that are walking there, relative to a Cape Cod bituminous curb that could be driven up on. And I'll leave it with Jeff. He had some information on the watershed.
Yeah, as far as the porous asphalt, the lower portion of Pond Street is in a DEP Zone A, which is a surface water tributary to a surface water supply. And you're actually not allowed to do, the DEP regulations do not allow porous asphalt within a Zone A. The reason that is that if you have an oil spill or something on the asphalt or any type of contamination, it's going to infiltrate right through that porous asphalt. Alternatively, if it's impervious, it's going to slope back to the roadway and be treated by the catch basins and the particle separator. So you actually get a higher level of treatment there. And then for curbing, just to echo, we're doing Cape Cod berm where we have a 2-foot grass strip between the sidewalk and the roadway. In locations where the sidewalk is immediately adjacent to the travel lane, for safety, a vertical curb is preferred to keep a car from coming up on the sidewalk.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
It looks like Paul has has your hand raised again.
I do, and I'm awfully sorry. This is the last you're going to hear from me. But it looks to me that what we're trying to do, and this is probably more for Brian or Jeff Hassett, is compared to what's running into the Peppermint Brook right now, just with the natural runoff, we're looking to improve it by the catch basins and also reduce what's going in there. And maybe they're better served answering that than I am, but I'm just extrapolating that from what's been presented.
Thank you. And I think that's exactly the kind of information that whether it's via narrative or, further drafting that, would go to satisfy this concern. So we could, on the next hearing, hopefully move this project along.
Thanks, Valerio. Now I'm going to keep my big mouth shut.
You don't have to.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I just would, the only other thing I would ask for the project to consider, I would be happy if they could, as part of a condition of this project, potentially locate there was at least 2 rain gardens in this area. Maybe we could condition it that those are refurbished as part of this project. I know there's not much there's not much of an opportunity for mitigation, but that would kind of go a long way in terms of, you know, and for refurbishing those rain gardens would, you know, go a long way in terms of reducing nutrients and kind of serve the purpose of mitigation.
Yeah, we can look into that.
Charlotte, can you make sure we have that as a possible condition if we get around to voting on this?
Yeah, that was for the rain garden comment that Mr. McIntosh made.
There's
Okay.
apparently 2 rain gardens that may be in disrepair that
Okay.
need to be looked at. Thanks, Chris. Unless there's any objection, I'd like to continue this to whatever date works for the town and, you know, and for the commission. Charlotte, Brian, Jeff.
I think we can get back to you with that narrative in pretty short order. So do you have a meeting in 2 weeks?
Yeah, sorry, Jeff. Give me 1 second. I can pull up the dates because I don't have them at the top of my head right now. So we have June 5th and June 26th. Those are our 2 meetings for June. So 6/5 and 6/26.
We don't have a May 15th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, there's May 15. Sorry.
Okay.
I literally thought it was May 15th for some reason.
And yeah, I'd prefer the sooner the better. We're trying to line up the paving.
Okay. So I guess, Jeff, you know the drill. Is that enough time to submit things about a week in advance?
Yeah, we can certainly take care of that.
Okay.
Well, I thank everybody for their time. This is continued until May 15th.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Have
all.
a great
Great
night,
input.
guys.
Thanks for
Thank you.
So the
Thanks,
next
guys.
public hearing that we have, I'm sorry, Charlotte.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just said thank you.
In accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission is holding a public hearing now, Thursday, May 1st, 2025, at 7:17 p.m. With remote participation on Zoom for amended NOI 21-13 to allow an additional 161 square feet of work beyond the original limit of work in the 50-foot wetland buffer zone as depicted in the as-built plan for Ross and Sarah Fairbanks at 68 Whitehead Road. The public has been invited to offer input by emailing cpectel@cohassetma.gov, and details for access to the Zoom platform are on the commission's agenda online at cohassetma.gov. With that, Charlotte, is there anybody to promote? It looks like Jeff's still around. Is this one of your projects, Jeff?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Yep. And it looks like Mr. Fairbanks is there too. Hey, Ross.
Nice to meet you.
So with that, maybe, Charlotte, I'll turn it over to you and you can help us understand how it extended that far.
Sure. Yeah. And then Jeff, I can maybe start and you're welcome to follow up. Do you have the plan you can pull up?
Yep, I'll go ahead and bring it up.
Okay. Yeah, so with this project, they're finishing up on and we're working out an as-built, but it was noticed, of course, after there's a small hot tub area and fence area that was built just within the 50-foot buffer. The permits had only permitted a limit of work just at the edge of the 50-foot buffer, but Jeff and I believe that at some point during construction, because the barrier may have been moved by a contractor. I had been out to inspect it pre-construction. It was staked out by Morse Engineering, but I believe the site did need blasting, so I don't know if that was one of the reasons why it was moved. But as a result of that, the landscape designers and team, when they were finishing, the hardscape and landscaping work, they worked up to the area where the barrier was moved. So there is a slight encroachment that you may be able to see on the plans that are shown now. In the 50-foot buffer. And maybe I can pass it over to Jeff, but as part of this amended notice of intent request before trying to close out the permit, I believe that they're asking for, after the fact permission to keep the area of work within the 50, but then provide some buffer zone enhancement and mitigation to accommodate for that. And it looks like per the plan, they are working still, just outside of the 50-foot buffer. And then Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but we did look at the aerials and the surveys multiple times. I think there may or may not have been one tree that might have been removed in the 50, but as part of this mitigation plan, they are proposing 3 eastern red cedars in addition to a variety of native shrubs in that green area that you see on the plan.
Right, that's correct. Jeff Assett here, and thank you, Charlotte. That was a good summary. So I'm here on behalf of the property owners, Ross and Sarah Fairbanks. So we ended up filing a request for an amended order of conditions and an amended stormwater for this modification. And the area of work that goes into the 50-foot buffer is right here from the fence back to the red line being the 50-foot buffer. It's approximately 161 square feet, and that's made up of 25 square feet of the hot tub, 15 square feet of pervious patio right here, and then plantings and the fence. And I have a photo of that I'll share with you of the area, and I submitted this as part of the application. So this red line is approximate, but generally that gives you an idea of what went into the 50-foot buffer. The hot tub sits on a concrete pad, so it's not as simple as just sliding that back, and then the fence and the plantings. So as mitigation for it, what we're proposing is, so this application is asking if we can keep that work beyond the approved limit of work with mitigation. And we're proposing this green area. It's 450 square feet, so it's about a 2.8 to 1 ratio. And in that area, we're proposing 3 trees, 36 bushes, and 17 switchgrasses. And the reason we chose this location is that they actually ended up building the retaining wall here about 3 or 4 feet further back than we'd actually proposed. So it allows for a nice area right there between the toe of the wall and the 50-foot buffer to plant. And then other than that, I think they did a good job overall. If this modification is approved, then we'll be applying in very short order for the certificate of compliance for the site. And at this point, the site is 100% complete.
Thank you very much, Jeff. So I guess one concern that I have, I mean, I like the mitigation. One concern that I have, and I'm going to go run through the commissioners, but the hot tub is, what happens when it, overflows in a heavy rain? Is there something we can do to make sure that there's nothing that's treating the water in the hot tub getting out into the 50-foot?
Yeah, I mean, the hot tub, it has a cover on it, and it has, good 6-8 inches of freeboard too. So it's never going to overtop.
Okay. Commissioner Berrigan, any thoughts? I know it's a tough one.
What about the hot tub? You said it wouldn't like overflow. What about leaking from underneath somehow? Is that possible or it
I've
wouldn't?
never heard of that happening, but
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay. Well, if you hadn't heard of it, you would know. I mean, you deal with this stuff all the time. I was just wondering. Okay, so that's good.
Jeff, do you have the plan that was approved that we can just sort of look at the difference?
Yeah. So this is the approved plan with a proposed hot tub here, a permeable patio going around it. And where they ended up constructing it is they moved the hot tub around the corner to here. Actually, let me go back one sec.
Yeah, it looks like they did.
Yeah, they did. So the hot tub went in right here, and the encroachment is right across that kind of corner of the 50-foot buffer.
So it wasn't as much as the buffer was, kicked back or moved, and it was sort of inadvertently encroached. It was the location of the hot tub was moved around the corner of the house.
Yeah, they did move it around the corner, and when the landscapers showed up, they just worked to the limit of work that was there. They had no idea there was any issue until we did the as-built. And early on in the project, we did stake out that limit of work. At one point, there was an erosion barrier in the correct location. I don't know what happened between the start of the project and a couple of years later, but again, it was a complete accident that we brought to their attention when we did the as-built.
Well, I mean, the landscaping and maybe a tree being removed was a complete accident, but moving the hot tub around the corner was not a complete accident, right?
No, yeah, that's certainly true. Yeah.
I mean, I like the mitigation efforts, and it seems like the construction, can you go down a little bit and show on this original plan where the mitigation is taking place?
Yeah, it's right here where we're proposing a retaining wall. And the retaining wall, they ended up moving back closer to the house by about 3 feet. Maybe probably
So,
more,
and then-
3 to 4 feet. Yeah.
And so right at the 50-foot there, we've actually gained, you know, you said almost 3 times as much by having the retaining wall in a slightly different place.
Right, exactly.
Commissioner Magnell?
Well, the only other thing I'm concerned about is the fact that they did remove 2 trees within the 50-foot buffer, which were not part of their original plan.
Oh, is it 2?
That's what from the original plan document shows two trees which are in green, which says those are ones who were not going to be removed. They must have been removed in order to put the hot tub in.
And so
the trees weren't removed to put the hot tub in. The trees were gone when they showed up to install the hot tub and do the landscaping. I don't know what happened to them, if they came down in the storm or if they were cut down. I honestly couldn't tell you. But for that reason, that's why we're proposing 3 trees as part of the mitigation. We could certainly increase the number of trees if you're, I know sometimes you do. I thought it was 1 tree, so we did 3. But we could increase it to, you know, a 2-to-1 ratio and add a 4th tree.
Yeah, Jeff, we kind of looked at this a few times and I'm still not 100% convinced if it's 1 or 2 trees, but the survey on the plan does show 2. But when we were looking at it on the aerials and we were looking at previous photos, it may have potentially been 1, but it may or may not have been a survey error. So if the commission would like to see, I think 3 cedars are proposed. So if we want to bump that up to 4 at a 2-to-1 replacement, if the applicant is open to that, that might be easier. But yeah, this was originally surveyed as 2 trees in that area. It's just I don't know if that was an error from the beginning or not.
Commissioner Magnell, any other thoughts? I think that was a good catch there.
No, I mean the amount that they're mitigating is actually pretty good. It is within the 100, not within the 50. But either way, it seems to be in a place which it's not like they're putting in lawn or anything. So I just want to make sure we replace the vegetation appropriately.
Commissioner McIntyre? You're muted, Chris.
Thanks. I was just trying to pull up Nearmap to see what the rest of the 50 looks like there. It seems so. Sorry, Jeff. Could you explain what the situation is with the retaining wall? It's down. It's on the low side of the retaining wall. There's
so we proposed a retaining wall right along the 50-foot buffer, and the limit of work is right along the 50-foot buffer as well. And that was staked out and erosion control barrier placed as well. And they intentionally moved the wall back just to make it easier to construct. So that area is now free. It's about 3 to 4 feet wide along the 50-foot buffer.
So would the mitigation be in the 50 or outside of the 50?
No, we kept it. Let me go up to the other plan. It begins at the 50-foot buffer and goes to the wall.
Okay.
So it's within the limit of work, the original limit of work.
Chris, did you find the near map for that area that's being improved?
No, I got distracted by looking at the plan. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't know if Charlotte or anybody or Chris, if anybody wants to pull up the near map of that area that's being improved, and I'd like to see, You're muted, Charlotte.
Sorry, I was also distracted looking at your map. Are you looking for just current imagery, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, or
Okay.
Yeah, because it hasn't been improved yet. Yeah.
Yeah, so probably right around here. So the toe of the slope
Okay.
here. I know you can ignore the estimated buffer lines, but it would probably be right here, just in front of the retaining wall and before the 50-foot buffer, which would be probably about here.
Yeah, I think you can actually see the mulch stock there, right?
Yeah, right. There you go. That is the mulch stock.
So it's right in between. Okay.
Yeah.
A little confused that it looks like you have a split screen, but for 2 dates, but you don't have two dates.
Oh, I do. Yeah, sorry, I was hiding it. I was
Oh,
just
that's
looking
okay.
at before and after construction.
I'd
This
like
is
to-
as of April 10th, 2025.
Yeah, yeah, they just had an update.
Yep.
All right, can you show us what it was like before construction? Slide that back over.
Yeah, this is a little, well, before landscaping.
You want to run your mouse over where we're looking for? Yeah.
Yeah. So like kind of right here. Is that a tree?
Okay.
That may have been a tree that was,
Looks like there's a tree that was removed there too. Or a few.
huh?
That tree might be within the limit of work though. That one immediately adjacent to the house.
Yeah, Jeff, sorry, was that on the plan to remove or remain? Because this is after the home's already built.
If it was less than 12-inch caliber, it wouldn't.
But it's within the 100 or not.
It is within the 100, yeah. So it was removed at some point between 2022 and 2023. Looks like after the home was built. But it's within the limit of the silt sock.
But it's still within the 100, so we would want to get a bit.
It could potentially have been over here and the canopy's just over the limit of work. So actually, I don't know if that's the tree or if this is a tree and it's just hasn't foliated yet.
Charlotte, there's actually a tree in the April 2025. You can see.
Yeah, I think,
shadow from
I don't know if this is
branches.
it or if this is it. Yeah.
But even lower, further south, if you zoom back out a little bit, isn't there a tree right
Oh,
at the
sorry,
end of the wall?
it's lagging. Where? Just to the south over here?
Yeah, doesn't that
Yeah,
look like
these
the
are
canopy right
shadows.
there? Yeah.
Yeah. Might be a little confusing because this is April and this was August when, not everything's foliated yet for this year, but obviously this imagery in 2022 is full foliage. So yeah, definitely see trees in here. I just don't, yeah.
So I guess my suggestion would be that, I know that I would like to get a firm tree count and see what's going on, because it's one, this is an ongoing problem for us, is when projects are all the way up to the 50, keeping the limit of work within, but then also we have the issue of, the location of the hot tub was actively moved. It wasn't a landscaper who accidentally, went past the silt sock, so I'd like to get a firm count on the trees and really, sharpen our pencil on what the mitigation effort is. It sounds like we need at least 4 because there were, I think here we want to err on the side of caution, and so there's 2 within the 50 that were removed, and then it looks like there might be at least 1 in the 100. So look, I'm not. So with that, if any other commissioners want to chime in, but I would like to really get a clear picture of what was done within the 50 and the 100, particularly when it comes to removing trees. And then, we're working on updating our regulations, et cetera, about, as you were aware, Jeff, our standard is 2 to 1 in the 50 and 1 to 1 in the 100. So it looks like we're at 4 or 5 trees that need to go back in order for us, and at least for me, to approve this, sort of minor mitigation to what seems like an intentional deviation from the approved plan to me, so that would be my 2 cents. I don't know if Commissioner Berrigan, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No,
just gonna
nothing more to add, but I agree with you.
Commissioner Magnell?
I've got the idea we should continue to look at that. I've looked at the maps, but it's tough to tell.
Yeah, you caught 1 in the 50. Commissioner McIntyre?
No, nothing.
Jeff or Ross, I want to certainly give you time to chime in. It looks like, we're probably going to be one more hearing while we sharpen up the mitigation here. But if there's anything else you think that we should be considering now, but between now and the next hearing, please.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do a site visit. We'll get you an exact count on the trees. And I know the Fairbanks aren't opposed to planting additional trees. So I would say anywhere where there's some uncertainty, like up near the hot tub, I would just assume it's 2 trees instead of 1, and we'll give you we'll come back with a 2-to-1 ratio for that.
Okay.
I will
All
just,
right. I mean, yeah, Ross, did you have something?
sorry, yes, just regarding moving the hot tub, I don't know if this was our first time building a house, a lot of moving parts. When the wall was moved back to make it easier for whatever reason, it was initially on the 50, was moved back about 4 feet, 3 or 4 feet. At that point, that's when that's when the hot tub got moved around the corner, just to kind of, because things were moving, things were getting tight in that space. So again, it wasn't intentional. This was definitely an accident. We sincerely apologize. Whatever we can do, we're willing to do it. So if it's more trees, we're open to it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's not really the issue. It just, I think as homeowners, as much as unfortunately the responsibility falls on you, contractors also should be aware if they're going to move a hot tub around the corner of a house for an approved plan that's within a setback from a resource area. They got to take some responsibility for that. You don't. Nobody expects you to have known that this was going to be an issue ahead of time, right? And when I say intentional, it's not blame like saying that you did something, malicious or something. It's more just it was moved, and it wasn't just somebody with a weed whacker getting past the limit of work, right? It's more than that. So, but this is really incumbent on contractors also to who work in our town to know that we have an active commission who are really thoughtful about protecting it. That's why everybody wants to live here, and it's so beautiful. And so it wasn't supposed to. It wasn't trying to be a slam on you or by any means.
Sure.
Yeah. So with that, it sounds like Jeff, you're willing to work with the Fairbanks and Charlotte and just really make sure we know what was taken out within the 50 and the 100 and maybe amend the mitigation plan a little bit, and we can talk about this again in a couple weeks or whenever you think it gives you enough time to do all that.
Yeah, exactly. I think we can take care of that next week if you can put us on for May 15th.
And Jeff and Ross, I know I've been out there a handful of times, but I guess if we all want to be there at the same site visit, just let me know. I'm happy to attend if I can make it. But yeah, we've definitely looked at this, and I think maybe we just all need to be there at once.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be great. We'll take you up on that.
Yeah, bring a laptop with a tethered cell phone so that you can.
Yeah, there you go. I was gonna say Jeff's welcome to view my Nearmap account in the office too.
Okay, we actually have Nearmap now.
Oh, you do have it now. Nice.
Yeah,
Everyone's getting it. Love
It's
that.
so much fun.
Yeah,
I love this. I love the program. Sanjay, I don't know if I saw you were on. Were you? And I missed you. I apologize. I see you now, but when we were going through the commissioners, I think you might have dropped off.
Oh no, yeah, I was just on my phone.
No.
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Sanjay. I didn't see that you were there. Please, yeah. What thoughts do you have on mitigation, on next steps, on what's going on here?
Yeah, nothing material to add, except that it would be nice to relook at this again, given how materially changed the position of the hot tub is and the impact, and what we think about the mitigation now that it's sitting, in the 50.
Okay. Yep. And I think they Jeff and Ross understand those are hopefully what we can accomplish for next time and see if we can move this along.
Absolutely.
All right. So Charlotte, do we have this on for May 15th?
Yep.
Great. Thanks a lot for your time tonight, guys.
Thank you.
You as
Thanks,
well.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One moment, guys, and my apologies. So our next hearing, in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing, or is holding a public hearing tonight, Thursday, May 1st, 2025 at 7:40 p.m. to relocate, or I'm sorry, at 7:40 p.m. via remote participation on Zoom for amended NOI 23-31 to relocate and extend a rear yard pool fence to the edge of the existing lawn within the 50-foot salt marsh buffer zone coastal bank and land subject to coastal storm flowage for Brian and Aaron Kalber at 92 Beach Street. The public has been invited to offer input by emailing cpec@cohassetma.gov. Details for access to the Zoom platform are on the commission's agenda, available online on the town's website. Charlotte.
Hi, Sean. You might be on your own. I
Oh,
think
Sean, I haven't seen you in a while.
How are you guys? Good evening.
Good
Thank
evening.
you for having me tonight. I do believe that one of the homeowners, Aaron Kalber or Brian, are going to be here. So they may be in the audience right now.
Yes, they are in the audience, but they didn't want to be promoted for now unless they were clicking the wrong button.
Yeah, sure. No, no problem. And so I can at least start off and then let Aaron chat. We came before you, and do you want me to try to pull up and share my my plan, or do you want to pull it up, Charlotte? What do you think? You know, me to
Oh, sure.
want me
Yeah,
to
if you can pull
share?
that up, that'd be great. If not, I'm happy to do that momentarily.
I think
There
I
you
can
go.
do it.
Beat me to
Hopefully
it.
Can you see it? Okay. So this is a project that we came through, call it late summer of last year, something like that. And what it was a reconstruction of a pool. There was already a pool in the back of the house, existing house. And there was hardscape, and really we were reworking it and doing a different pool. It came through, got approved. The thing we're coming to you tonight for, and it's actually built to this point. Virtually all the hardscape is built at this point. The pool, the terrace area, maybe a couple little pieces of stone missing. What we were coming back for was we had a fence that we had fairly tight to the house there. That solid red line that you see was the fence that was approved. It's a mesh and cedar fence, so pretty wide open looking fence. It's one that you see quite a bit, 4 foot tall. Homeowner would like to see if you would consider an amendment. Once they started realizing kids playing in the yard and being a little anxious about the salt marsh right here, started realizing that if they could contain that area that is cleared already, anyway, it's already lawn, if they could extend the fence and bring it around at the edge of the vegetation that's there now, bring it around. You can see that other line that we've got there, and return it at the base of the hill here and back to the corner of the house. And that way, in terms of safety for the children, being able to keep them in the yard, not having them get out into the salt marsh that's right there. And I feel like it makes a lot of sense. Certainly if it was my house, I think I'd want to do the same. There's also, what can also be a positive on this is that you're not having any trafficking in this vegetation. Anybody coming off of the yard here and trampling in on the salt marsh vegetation that's there. Very cord grass that we've got in that area. One of the things that they were hoping to do also, we were already going to be planting quite a bit of plant material around here, and that was on the existing plan. What we were proposing would be to plant some additional plant material on the inside, all native plant material. And I could go through all those plants, but it's all the similar plant list that we had previously, which is down here in the lower right-hand corner. If Aaron is on and would like to chat about it at all, I know that this is something that she really is pretty passionate about.
Hello, am I on? Can you hear me?
You're on. You're on, Aaron.
Sorry. Yeah, that I think Sean pretty much summed it up, that moving the fence would help create a more functional backyard and some more safety for the kids.
And Sean, thank you, Aaron. Sean, you mentioned it, but can you describe the fence itself again?
Yeah, the fence itself is a mesh, a cedar post mesh fence. It's what we were proposing in this location before, and it's one we use pretty commonly just because of the view that is open through it. It's a metal mesh essentially and cedar frame. What we were proposing in this area is to keep the metal mesh and cedar frame to this point and then have it be no cedar frame at all, just the posts with the mesh that wraps. And it would just be mesh at that point. And then as we return, we'd go back to the cedar frame with the mesh. And it's really what we've used on, I hope I'm not saying every project that's near the water, but it tends to be almost every project near the water because of its openness, its open character. It's not a climbable fence. It's got a little bit of, it's not a huge opening on the mesh.
Thank you. Commissioner Berrigan, thoughts?
I don't have any questions or input.
Commissioner McNeil?
Did you ask me earlier?
Yeah, Steve, sorry, I went a little out of order. Sanjay will be next. Okay, am I breaking up? Can you not hear me? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you just fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Steve, did you have any additional thoughts about moving and extending the fence?
I've got a couple of questions. One is, does the original pool enclosure fence continue to be there, or is that being replaced by the backyard fence?
That would be our intent, Steve, is for that to be the new enclosure for that.
Also, I'm a little concerned that it actually goes down into most of it is actually in the coastal bank.
What is here primarily as the primary feature is the salt marsh and that edge of vegetation. That edge of vegetation line is really right here. And there's lawn up to this point. We were getting rid of lawn and returning it to vegetation. There's a line here that's called coastal bank from at least a landform or a math problem, but it's the salt marsh is the primary feature here.
Does that area below the coastal bank get wet?
No, not that I know about. I think it just really goes to right at this edge of the vegetation.
Okay, I think that was. So are you going to replace the lawn with a kind of full-size lawn, or is it just?
No, what we're doing is just the lawn stays as is, except for removing some lawn to put in plant material here. This was already on our previously approved plan to the right-hand side here. The east side, that was already on the plan, and that's to remain. We were still going to do all native plants in here. That was still to maintain. In red were going to be the new plants that we added.
There seems to be a thing that looks like a long hedgerow there in the center. Is that what that is?
No, it's not a hedgerow. It's actually vegetation. That's all native Coreopsis. Really, we'll kind of intermingle some of this plant material. We've got bearberry, switchgrass, fair amount of switchgrass, Indian grass, eastern showy aster. The woody plant material we have there is sweet gale. We've also got some goldenrod, but the woody plant material is sweet gale, inkberry. We've got some beach plum toward the right-hand side, as well as serviceberry is kind of the larger one you see right here, Steve. And then back to inkberry, some beach plum.
It would be pretty heavily planted.
What was that?
It would be very heavily planted.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the questions I had. I just was a little concerned about the thing going into the coastal bank.
But on that issue, on that point, Sean, you're saying it's lawn up to that, basically up to the fence currently anyway. Right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Commissioner Fernando?
I just want to clarify if I heard right. There'll be one fence and we'll eliminate the fence that was previously approved, or will there be two fences?
One fence, Sanji. So the intent was to not have this cut off here, and I think a lot of that is safety driven. I actually think it helps for trafficking anybody trampling into the salt marsh, to be honest. But it's primarily for safety. So just be this one fence here.
Got it. And just two more questions, just to orient myself, there's a couple of blue dash lines. I think the
Yeah.
first one, you mentioned was the coastal bank. What are the other
Yeah,
lines?
this
Just
is,
to orient myself?
yeah, correct. This is salt marsh right here. And that's
Okay.
really the predominant landscape feature you see there is the vegetation right here is the salt marsh vegetation that you see. This is to the discussion point just a few seconds ago is considered top of coastal bank. And then your 50-foot to the coastal bank is what's staggered like that. So that's essentially the feature that's there. I mean, it's
And-
coastal bank by the math portion of slopes. But
Got it.
the salt marsh is really the landscape feature that you're there to protect, I would say. At least we would be there to protect.
And then along the left side, is that essentially framing existing lawn, or is there any clearing?
Yeah, existing lawn.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a real steep slope right here. It's vegetated. Allow the contour as you see here.
But the fence is not taking out any vegetation
No.
along that left side. Okay.
No, no, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sanji. Commissioner McIntyre?
Yeah, my only concern is that once you put the fence in, you start encroaching. I mean, this buffer zone or this marsh on near map, it looks like there was a good chunk of it that was turned into lawn back in like 2021. And I'm just concerned that once you put the fence in, that it's just gonna be free for all in terms of just like treating it like a lawn. And I think I don't really understand what dangers are posed by the salt marsh in terms of, I understand safety and I'm all for it, but the reasoning for a fence, I think it's fine as is. I'm not really for it. And I'm happy to share what I'm talking about in terms of the near map situation, but
Sure. Do you mind sharing your screen, Chris?
yeah. Requested.
You're good.
Oh, let me see if I can stop.
Oh, yeah, I
my-
allowed multiple presenters to
Oh,
share.
you did,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're sharing.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, so this basically this quadrant, which is lawn currently, was in square feet-ish. You see it was I'll move it for now, but you know, this was all marsh and this was all plants back in 2020. And now it's lawn. So my concern is that you can see this is where it was herbicide was applied or something. Here, 2021, everything's dead. And then it's lawn slowly. Now it's grass. So that's just my concern based on looking at that once the fence goes up, it's going to be more of the same and just kind of encroaching into the resource, because it's not the pool's already in the buffer zone. Now we're talking about the coastal bank, which is resource. I mean, it's protected under the state, so I don't get why we need a fence, and I'm not really for it.
So, Sean and Aaron, can you, well, first of all, Charlotte, so the change to lawn there, was that something that needed previous approval, and was it previously approved? Or Sean?
Anything about, I wouldn't have seen anything for that. What you said that was when do you think, Chris, it was
2020, like 2021, 2020, in those
somewhere in that neighborhood? We wouldn't have been in, and I don't know.
Yeah,
if
I
you-
don't, the permit was submitted in 2023, so I don't remember if we were looking at near map in 2023 when we initially issued this permit, but we don't, to my knowledge, there wasn't a 2021 permit for this, unless Aaron, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't, I can check our records, but
No, it's okay. And then Sean, just looking at Chris's picture, I mean, is the proposed new fence, does it extend much further than the lawn, or is it really just on the?
No, it would just be at the edge of where the lawn is now, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there'd be no more encroachment, I mean, that's for sure, because the fence would be in the way, certainly, of any encroachment.
I think it's like, I think one of my concerns is that it's, right now it's coastal bank, which is defined basically on what? Slope? And back then it may have been classified as something else, because based on the vegetation that was present, so. I don't know, I'm hesitant to encroach any further, and I don't think it's,
Chris, can you help me understand how it's gonna be a further, I mean, cause I just wanna follow your reasoning here.
well, so, I mean, it's like your well, first of all, the fence is an impediment to, it's blocking off certain species, I guess. It's not, and it's not just the buffer zone, but you're basically, it's a demarcation, and then it's like what happens within the fence. I guess it's subjective, but it is just a fence, and maybe it wouldn't happen, but it's just like that's typically what a fence indicates, is like the yard, and so
But I guess what Sean's saying is that it's already the yard. That's just why I'm trying, and I'm not trying to disagree with you or either at all, Chris, as you know, we usually are on the same page on everything. I'm just trying to understand exactly the way you're approaching it, so I can, understand as well. I get the impediment of wildlife, that's certainly, an issue, but if it's already the yard and we're just sort of making, just to play, advocate for the property owner, we're making it just sort of more useful site, right? It's just a better use of their property to have the fence on the sort of at the edge of the yard versus have a fence and then the yard. I'm just trying to follow. That's all.
I'm just looking at the history, I guess, Valerio, and I don't really see the need for it. Or I don't see it as what we call a circumstance that that would warrant like fencing into the resource area. That's just me. I mean, you could stay out of the resource and kind of grab less of it. I think there's and Charlotte, correct me if I'm wrong. What are the fence? What's the what are the? There's
Yeah.
certain.
So I guess very recently, so the commission's aware, very recently today, the engineer had spoken to Greg DeCesar from DEP. DEP didn't have any comments for the submission. They were just deferring to local Concom. But in terms of fence guidance, the fencing is considered normally a minor activity under the Wetlands Protection Act, but it can't impede wildlife passage. And so DEP's previous guidance to me was to have, well, obviously they want fences that are really short in height, of course, but I know that's not why most people put up fences. But then they also wanted at least I think it was like 3 to 4 inches on the bottom, so that small wildlife could still get through. And then also not completely enclosing an area that like blocks off wildlife passage from, one resource area to the buffer zone or to another. So, putting in an enclosure in one area may not be an issue, but enclosing it in a wider space may or may not pose a wildlife passage concern. So that's like DEP's general guidance in terms of minor versus something that may require more permitting.
We would also have that 3 inches below. We really, from a code compliance from pool enclosure, we can't have anything greater than technically 3 and 31/32. So we can't have 4 inches, and still meet code, compliance for pool enclosure. So we would have that space below.
So how about for larger wildlife? Is this an area where they have to traverse to get to one part of their habitat to another?
Where you got either side of the property that is, that you would still be able to come around the edges of the property that are, have got some kind of vegetation on to the west, as well as a bit to the east. That'll be open on the east side. They're vegetated on the far front of the property is, essentially what you don't really fully see. There's more resource for the water that's on this other side, on the front yard. So,
And then okay, sorry, go ahead, Sean.
yeah, no, so it's kind of bounded by wetlands in that area, on this peninsula, so to speak.
How tall is this fence?
4 feet is what we have to be by Cohasset. Technically, it's a state. Cohasset adopts the state, 4 foot height. Some
For the pool safety standard.
Yeah, for pool enclosure. Yeah. Auto cover, Cohasset went for a little while of not requiring a fence there for a short period of time, if you have an auto cover, but they went back and essentially said you have to have your fence.
Do any other commissioners have any other questions? One moment. So Charlotte, are there any other thoughts that we should be anything else we should be considering?
So the original permit was given a variance request to work, or a variance, excuse me, to work within the 50-foot buffer, but this is, it is a change to our original variance request, so that would be something that the commission has to consider and vote on if you reach a decision. And just in terms of the, slight impact to the land subject to coastal storm flowage, the engineer did update the notice of intent form, and we did submit that to DEP. But, as I mentioned, DEP did not have any comments this time for this amended submission, and we're going to defer to Concom. But just wanted to let you guys know that they did resubmit that, included the increase in square footage alteration of a resource area to include the, the fence postings. And this would be a modified variance if the commission were to vote on an approval.
So is it 2 votes, one to amend the order of conditions?
One to amend and one to, and also to amend the variance. Yeah.
And Sean, just one more time, I know I hate to make you repeat yourself. Can you tell us a little bit more about those red plantings on the top portion of the,
This right here, talk to you a little bit more about what those are. Yeah, essentially what it is, more native plants. So we had already planned on using some switchgrass in this area. We were using a goldenrod, which we would just extend more of that purple love grass, all native plant material. Little blue stem is in this area. Bearberry we're going to use and add to what we had existing, which was really a lot of the grasses and forbs, our term for perennials, as well as the woody plant material that we have, inkberry, we've got serviceberry, beach plum, bayberry. So using more of the typical palette that you'd expect to see there.
And Sean, once again, what was the expanded plantings? How large a space was that?
How large a space? Oh, I can give you a quick kind of estimation of that. I should have given
Or just even rough, yeah, like, I'm just wondering if that, even if what that is, and if we even grow that, if that might offset some of the concerns we have about, creating something in the buffer.
It may be about 200 square feet, something like that. About that neighborhood.
And that's
maybe a little, might be a little more than that. Actually, it might be a little higher than that.
And is that replacing lawn with native species?
Replacing lawn. Yeah, that's replacing lawn.
So I guess I think I already asked this, and it's hard to tell, but I mean, is this a necessary thoroughfare for larger animals?
No, I wouldn't think so. You've got it on the right-hand side of the house if something's coming through there, or the left-hand side of the property, essentially. It's a real steep slope on this side. And there's other properties. This is really at the far end of the peninsula, essentially. And here's the other side of the peninsula, to the south on the page. This is all the way at the end there that sticks into Little Harbor. There's the.
I mean, I don't have any more questions. I don't really have as much of a problem with this. It seems to make sense. We're taking back some lawn. We're putting in some native plantings in exchange. It seems like a more functional use. I definitely understand Chris's concern, but I mean, that's already, given the fact that's already the situation. Personally, I don't have any big issue with this, but with that, I mean, do any other commissioners have any other comments or questions?
I'm still a little bit concerned about this coastal bank thing, because if you look back somewhere between the fall of 2021 and summer of 2022, that coastal bank area was not lawn. You had so I think it became lawn somewhere around 2022. So now you're just saying you make it more of a lawn than a wet, essentially the wetland buffer.
So, but my concern, and Charlotte maybe can help us with this. This NOI was approved in 2023, right? So we approved it based on the status of the lawn as it is today as well. I mean, that's sort of like, I mean, unless am I misseeing it?
I would have to look back at how much we looked at NearMap for this original hearing, but we did issue an order of conditions and a stormwater permit for this project in 2023. It did have some conditions. We did definitely discuss a lot about the pool and the plantings, and I think we had at least 2 hearings, Sean, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't remember how much we were looking at NearMap and previous imagery.
Was that 2023 or was that 2024? Like
well, it has a 23/31, so it must be really late in 2023. Probably went into early 2024.
I think so. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, the order, I can confirm when that was issued, but I would imagine that would probably be early 2024.
Something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, I believe it was 2 hearings. Yeah.
Yep.
Is there an urgency? I mean, what if we had one continuance and maybe we could peek at, like, I mean, I might actually, given the fact that I think I was even on the commission then, it might be worth taking a look at the minutes, and maybe I'll even take a peek at the video and see if there was some particular concern or discussion that, we're kind of taking for granted now, as far as just, oh, this is already, disturbed area, it's made into lawn, let's just put a fence there, which seems logical. But given the fact that this really is less than 2 years ago that we're over this project, if there's no absolute urgency, and I don't want to discount anybody's concern, particularly if Commissioner McIntyre and Commissioner Magnell who are hung up on this. I hate to sort of, make a motion or force a vote right now where it's pretty unknown as to what the outcome is going to be. So if Aaron and Sean, if you don't mind it, maybe we come back in a couple of weeks after the commissioners have had an opportunity independently to review the meeting minutes from the previous hearing. Charlotte, if you could share that and maybe the link to the video, and we could see what the discussion was that maybe made us have the fence here in the first place.
The urgency our urgency would be more about. I don't know exactly the status of the completion of the pool. Got to be getting close, so I know that we're going to have to put a fence up relatively soon. I mean, maybe not within 2 weeks, but relatively soon after that, I believe.
I mean, you've heard the comments of the commission. If you'd like us to take a vote right now, I'm certainly happy to do that too. I don't think it's necessarily going to go against you. I don't know, I think straw votes are sort of disfavored unless, in extreme circumstance. I'd rather just give us a couple weeks to take a quick look at why we decided the fence was there in the first place, and definitely give consideration to Commissioner Magnell and Commissioner McIntyre's concerns.
I mean, I certainly don't want to force the issue or anything like that. I want you guys to have your opportunity to consider it appropriately and in your appropriate schedule, appropriate time. So
yeah, I mean, Ms. Culber, I hope I'm saying your last name right. Would you mind coming back in a couple weeks so we can just make sure that we didn't, have some commitment as to why the fence is there the way it is now, that we're just sort of ignoring in this expansion?
Sure, yeah, I don't think initially we even I wasn't really paying much attention to the fence location until I realized that it's like really not functional except for, protecting the pool. So, but I'm open to, further.
You just wanted to put a fence because you knew you had to by code to protect the pool, and now you're like, that fence doesn't make any sense. Let's put it here instead.
Yeah, that's kind of the situation. It's, there is a lot, we're surrounded by a lot of water here. So thinking if we're going to put a fence up, maybe we actually, use it, as an actual fence rather just having it there to protect the pool.
Well, I appreciate you coming to us with the modification as opposed to just doing it and seeking, and then asking for forgiveness instead of permission. I think that's happening not often enough. So if it's all right, let's continue this to May 15th, if that works. And we can take a look at, what was approved last time in the sense of the minutes and the reasoning, and maybe come back. Does that seem okay? Would that help us, Commissioner McIntyre and Commissioner Magnell particularly?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Chris?
Yeah.
Let's do that. I hate to overcomplicate things, and we like to close stuff out whenever possible, but let's come back on May 15th, and that will give us a chance to take a look at the reasoning behind it.
And Sean and Aaron, I can send you guys the link if you can't find it on YouTube, and I'll send you guys the minutes as well.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, guys. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, 1 second, folks. So next we have a show cause hearing for it's 8:15. We've been at it for an hour and 45 minutes. Would you guys mind taking, or it's 8:13? Would you mind taking a break to 8:20?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see each other back here in 6-7 minutes.
Okay.
And hi, Patrick. Thank you for joining us. I don't know if you just heard, but we'll come back at 8:20.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Awesome. Thank you.
Rejoin. Thank you.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing?
Hey, Charlotte, Patrick's here.
Hi, Patrick. Thanks for staying with us.
Hey,
Yeah,
Patrick.
absolutely.
Sorry about the
Thank you.
last minute break there.
Not a problem. Thank you guys for the time as always.
No problem. So next up, we have a show cause hearing. I think I started saying it. 44 Summer Street, unauthorized tree removal for the Flynn's. Charlotte, Patrick, take it away.
Sure, and I can pull up our favorite tool. So I had been at some final inspections on Summer Street. I did notice there was a sign out there from Total Tree at 44 Summer Street that it looked like 2 trees were cut down. It is across the street from a marsh, plus or minus, I would say, in the 100-foot buffer. So I did send a letter to Patrick, and he talked to me about that. Total Tree had called Chris Murray from our Tree and Parks Department, DPW. DPW did confirm that these 2 trees that you see here, the stumps here, are not town trees. So actually that kind of sort of looks right, I guess, with our estimated parcel lines. But yeah, so the town confirmed that they weren't town trees, so they weren't responsible for taking them down. But Total Tree had called the town beforehand. The only issue was I just wasn't a part of the conversation. I wasn't able to talk to Chris before tonight, but I did talk to Patrick about this, that sometimes, you know, with miscommunication with the town, especially with trees that are potentially street trees and that are also DPW's jurisdiction, sometimes conservation is just left out of the conversation. We've had 1 or 2 of these instances before since I've been here. But with that being said, I can turn it over to Patrick. But this is from what, just so that you guys can see it, in blue here is like the quote unquote estimated wetlands from the state. Just to clarify, this is not a formal delineated map. It's just an estimation. So this orange line and green line are the estimated 1,500-foot buffer zones. And as you can see, Summer Street goes right through it.
Thanks, Charlotte. Patrick?
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Charlotte, and thank you again to all the commissioners. I know, you know, these are long nights, but it's important work, and I appreciate it. You know, and as Charlotte had touched on, you know, so we had 2 pretty large, I believe they were Norwegian maples here. You know, going back about a year ago, you know, last winter, last spring, the branches really started to come down. And, you know, I have some pictures I can share here. You can see one, thankfully, just nicked my gutter. But, you know, it went through, I believe the term that the folks at Total Tree used were widowmakers, went right through my gutter. And, you know, I have a couple of young kids, and, you know, so that was probably last winter, spring. And then towards the end of last summer, you know, I had my gutters cleaned, and when the guys were up on the roof doing that, they kind of articulated again, like, the amount of branches, you should really have someone take a look at this. You know, we were initially hesitant to do it because we like the shade, the privacy, the aesthetics, etc. But, you know, as I said, we have a couple of young kids. Obviously, you know, the trees in the house are very close to the street. And, you know, both in terms of our safety, but also, you know, folks walking by, it's very well trafficked by bikers, walkers, kids on bikes, folks walking dogs, you know, and also public safety is always going up and down Summer Street just because of the proximity to Elm Street. So, you know, God forbid if a big branch were to ever stop, or, you know, there was a life safety issue that public safety couldn't get through. So, you know, as Charlotte said, we reached out to Total Tree, and, you know, again, I think it was kind of just a misunderstanding. I had a conversation with Mr. Spalt, who said he had talked to the town and they weren't street trees. You know, my interpretation of that the town had been involved was that, you know, that meant it was a green light to do it. But, you know, again, per his expertise, you know, and you can see here, the trees were pretty dangerously over the house. And then you can see this from, you know, even last spring, you know, when they're supposed to be fully in bloom, they were still, you know, pretty sparse. And again, I'm no expert. You know, this one, sorry, this was just kind of the backside one. You know, I'm no expert, but they just didn't seem to be fully healthy and living anymore.
Thanks, Patrick. I think the kids were a nice touch to go for the safety angle. I actually I appreciate that. Yeah, do you have did you get a letter or anything in writing that I didn't see that that confirmed the hazard of the trees before they were taken down?
I did not. And again, I think, that was just the uneducated novice in me kind of assuming that the fact that there had been conversations with the town, I was unaware that there were multiple, folks that opine on the street trees versus, conservation trees and that sort of thing. So, that I take accountability for that, but, I think that was just my own kind of ignorance there.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I could see, that would have definitely been helpful because it does look like they are somewhat vegetated. They certainly weren't completely dead, and perhaps removing some of those limbs, it would have been a solution. But the trees are gone now. It looks like they're within the 100, not within the 50, and 2 were taken down. Is that right, Charlotte?
At least from estimations. I mean, I didn't go across Summer Street with a measuring tape, but you can see the wetlands across the street. It's not fully fragged, but definitely dominant. So I mean, from what it looks like, it does appear to be in the 100-foot buffer, and it's not like it was right up against a wetland or anything where it's clearly in the 50. This is across the street from the wetland. So I think, unless we want to measure it, I think we can assume the 2 trees were in the 100.
Okay. So I think just initial thoughts is we need to just see 2 more trees put back somewhere. Commissioner Berrigan, thoughts, questions?
No comment right now. Thank you.
Commissioner Fernando?
No, I agree. Yeah, no comments right now.
Commissioner Magnell?
I don't have a comment on this. Thank you.
Commissioner McIntyre?
No other comment other than, yeah, I agree. Just our kind of standard replacement.
Yeah, so I think we're pretty, I think it's probably, that's going to be the will of the commission, is to come back to us and show us where we're going to get, 2 new trees. You can work with Charlotte on figuring out an appropriate place. And I think that would probably resolve it. I know it was a safety thing, and it's totally logical to do it. And homeowners probably wouldn't assume that. It's just tough. Not people don't understand or know the regs, and it's tough. But we do need to see, in order to just for us to be consistent and continue to protect Cohasset as our part of our mandate, figure out where we can put 2 new trees.
Okay.
That would be acceptable, Patrick?
Yeah, definitely. That's reasonable and understandable, and I appreciate it. And I will certainly follow up with Charlotte to get a mitigation plan in place.
Charlotte, is there anything else we should be considering on this one?
In terms of does the commission want me to just work with Patrick administratively, or do you guys want to see a plan and have him come back and present it? I guess it depends if you want to close the show cause hearing tonight, or if you want to continue it with or without a mitigation plan that'll be either looked at by me or looked at by the commission.
I think,
Chris, it looked like you were gonna. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I think it's tree management stuff. 2 trees. I'm comfortable with Charlotte doing it and not having him come back.
I'm as well. Do any commissioners disagree?
No.
So why don't Charlotte, do we need to make a condition or something to close it and give you authority over just handling it administratively with Mr. Flynn? Or
yeah, I would vote on that, and then just to vote to close the show cause hearing and work with the agent to on a mitigation plan to put 2 trees somewhere in the 100-foot buffer. And I guess that Patrick, would you be open to just working with me on that like, I don't want to give you a hard deadline, but just like,
No, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, I
Yeah.
think we've been, obviously you guys lived through this winter too, but we've been waiting to get the stumps ground and get
Yeah.
that done and then figure out the best place within the buffer to
Okay.
put the new trees.
okay, yeah, if the commission doesn't have a preference, I'm happy to work with Patrick administratively. I don't know if we need a deadline or not, but if, yeah,
Can you
if
do
he's
that
open
in
to
the next
planting
30
them.
days, Patrick? Would a month give you time to figure it out with Charlotte?
I definitely a plan to
Plan,
do you
yeah.
mean to
Yeah,
have the
just a plan.
Yeah, not to
d-
plant.
Okay, yeah, definitely, because you know
Okay.
how busy all these
Yep.
landscapers are this time of year. So I definitely commit to a plan, but
Yeah, I
Okay.
would agree on that, because, yeah, plantings, yeah, so,
Yeah, that's fine. I just don't want it to be next year and we're still talking about it. So let's just come up with a plan over the next month, and you can work with Charlotte on getting it implemented, which she certainly has the experience and to figure this out with you. It's 2 trees in the 100. With that, I'll make a motion to close the show cause hearing with the condition that the homeowner and the conservation agent come up with a mitigation plan to plant at least 2 trees within the 100-foot buffer. Do I have a second?
Second.
I think a voice vote's fine. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. The show cause hearing is closed, and thank you, Mr. Flynn. Please work with Charlotte.
thanks a lot. Have a great night. We'll be in touch soon, Charlotte. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Patrick.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay, so hold on one sec, folks. So it looks like we're on to just sort of a whole bunch of well, first of all, there's a continued hearing for 39 Riverview Drive that's continued to May 15th. So I hope no one was sitting around waiting for that one. I apologize. I should have mentioned that at the top of the hearing tonight, or the top of. So, but now we have a number of NOIs and an enforcement order for 90 and 100 Whitehead Road. And it would be my preference, I'm going to take these out of order. I would like to do the enforcement order first, and then we can get into the NOI. It seems sort of illogical to, go with a notice of intent without figuring out how we can restore what was done originally. And so that's what we'll do. We're going to take the enforcement order for 90 and 100 Whitehead Road for unauthorized beach alteration by Minot International Limited, trustee Kingborn Trust first. With that, Charlotte, I see a few folks from the Whitehead team on the call, so I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Chair Romano. Good evening. My name is Adam Brodsky, and I represent the Kingsborn Trust, which is the property owner and certainly the applicant with respect to the notice of intent. With me this evening are Brendan Sullivan, our professional engineer, and Brad Holmes, our professional wetland scientist. And going to the beach management plan, the commission will recall that we filed a notice of intent in response to the enforcement order for the unauthorized beach maintenance activities. We conducted a site visit on, I believe, April 16th with the commission, and based upon the feedback that we received from the site visit, we've modified the proposed beach management plan to hopefully address the concerns of the commission, as well as Ms. Hechtel. And with that very short introduction, because we want to be efficient tonight, given the hour, would it be better to turn it over to you, Brad, or to Brendan first? I'll be guided by you, gentlemen.
I can pull up my screen, and Brendan, if I'm missing anything, you can correct me. If that's okay with the commission, I'll pull up my screen.
Yeah, definitely, Brad. Please. Thank you.
Okay. As we met with the commission, we did have a hearing originally, and we did get a chance to walk and talk. As a result of the site visit, we did revise the beach management plan. I think the points that we got out of our meeting was that the commission was looking for some more specificity in our management plan, where we had some more generalized conditions. So what we have done is provided the commission with a revised narrative to provide some more detail on the managing of seaweed and the managing of sediment. A lot of this activity follows the conditions that were in place or crafted as part of the Sandy Beach plan.
Can I interrupt for a second, Brad? I'm
Sure.
I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt your presentation, but I just want to make sure. So because of the previous work, we had that fill that's over sort of to the northwest where what was being raked off the beach previously was sort of being dumped to sort of bolster that to bolster that
In this area.
there, right? Yep.
Yep.
And then we had talked about, you know, how the beach would be restored potentially over time, but now there's an NOI which would make it so that it would never be. The plan is not to allow it to sort of get restored to its natural state, because we're going to continue to rake it is the goal here. So do we have any thoughts from any commissioners before we get into the NOI of anything that needs to be done or could be done? I think particularly the only sort of the remnant that I see from the previously unauthorized activity, which may soon become authorized to some extent, with some specificity, is that that area that it was where all this what was scraped off the beach was deposited. That would be, as far as I could tell, and I'd like to invite any other commissioners to chime in. The only thing that we could sort of do is maybe spread that out to restore what happened before. So let me hear. Steve, you weren't at you didn't get to go to the site visit, right? You were on vacation, if I remember right.
I was at the site visit for
You
that.
were? Okay. So let's start with Kathy. Do you have any thoughts on the enforcement order or
Val, I was not at the site visit.
And how about you, Sanji? You didn't make it to that either, huh?
Yeah, and
you've been injured.
I was trying to follow along. I was trying to understand the rationale for continuing to, groom the beach that way. I just don't know if I'm understanding the rationale there.
And so what I'm trying to do is at least figure out if there's any way or reason to put it back before we authorize, further beach raking. So I think we're going to get to that, Sanji, and Brad and Brendan and Adam are going to explain that to us. But Commissioner McIntyre, do you have any thoughts on how what we could do to deal with you?
Yeah, my only note and comment is that when we initially commented on what to do when we were addressing the enforcement order, I think we said let's do nothing, let nature redistribute it, and that was in the absence of this current plan. And I think our rationale was that it's rather than bringing heavy machinery back onto the beach to redistribute and potentially, disturb the resource area in this effort to rake and replace rocks and try to do what nature would do better. Just let nature take its course. And so with that, in the context of that, just having the NOI, it just doesn't, it's kind of just pushing aside for the enforcement order and just doing more raking. So I think that the decision to let nature take its course was absent of this NOI when we made it, and now with this NOI, it's just like the enforcement order was never really fully. It's different now, I guess I would say. Right.
So
Yeah, I wasn't really appreciating. It's sort of like we're going to ignore the enforcement order, and just say, hey, this, let's allow ourselves to continue doing the previously unauthorized activity and never give the beach an opportunity to go back. And that may be what the commission decides. Commissioner Magnell, what are your thoughts?
I think we should address the NOI first and try to include what we expect the outcome to be. And if that comes to a good agreement, we can just vacate the enforcement order.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll just say that the current enforcement order that's ongoing and active, so we did put a cease and desist on 90 and 100 Whitehead. We had amended it to include both addresses. And for a restoration plan, we had selected to be determined because, you know, as Mr. McIntyre mentioned, there were discussions about just letting everything go back to normal. But after those discussions, a NOI was submitted for the beach maintenance. So, and then we had also noted other violations, which you will hear tonight for future NOI. We have to read the public notices for them. But so in terms of the enforcement order, in terms of the restoration plan, I don't think, based on what's before us, I don't think we've come to a final conclusion of what restoration would be needed as required under the enforcement order. So that may or may not involve obviously having a discussion about the continued NOI for the beach maintenance plan, but that's at least for the enforcement order. Regardless of whatever we talk about first, I mean, that should just be figured out. So
I appreciate that. Thank you. So why don't we do this in that way, Brad, you can jump back in. Let's take NOI 2508 out of order as well. The beach maintenance plan that sort of, as Commissioner Magnell pointed out, ties really well into the enforcement order. And I'm sorry for the interruption. Brad, please.
Thank you. To address what you were speaking, the enforcement order, I believe, addressed the beach raking activity because it wasn't permitted, and therefore, as part of the response to the enforcement order, the applicant needs to define what the activities are and if they're permittable or not, and how does that meet the performance standards for the resource area. So as if we were in a bordering vegetative wetland, if someone were doing activities in the bordering vegetative wetland, restoration activities or response to the commission would have different criteria than a coastal bank or a coastal beach or land subject to coastal storm flowage. So as part of our notice of intent application to permit beach raking, we had to go through the performance standards for the coastal beach and define how that activity complies with the performance standards for a coastal beach, and we've done that. So as far as restoration or compliance with the regulations, yes, performing that work without a permit triggers an enforcement order because there isn't a permit. But that's not to say that beach raking activities on a coastal beach is not permittable. So what we've done is, in order to permit and allow the applicant and allow the commission to be able to issue a permit, we've crafted a beach management plan that would meet the regulations and meet the performance standards. And we've refined that proposal to provide some more specificity as we discussed with the commission. Stan Humphreys, our coastal geologist, provided us with some more detail. And we took another look at where we were depositing the sediment that was collected and along the coastal bank, coastal beach toe here. If you got a chance to look at that submittal, Stan put together an analysis regarding the Tombolo, which I hadn't heard before, and I think the commission probably hasn't either, but it's very interesting. A Tombolo is a stretch of coastal beach that connects to an island, and that's the case that we have here. The sledge outcrop is a Tombolo, so that this kind of ridge, which there isn't much in the field, but there is a little bit of elevated difference between each beach, creates the Tombolo effect. And going through the coastal erosion viewer, we find that this beach is accreting and not eroding, so that over the history, this beach has built up in volume as compared to other beaches that we see that are normally eroding. So instead of proposing to add that material that's raked off the beach into this area along the coastal bank. The proposal would be to add to this area just beyond the Tombolo area here and veneer it onto that smaller beach area, and then use this beach as more of the recreational beach so that it's more of a reduced and concentrated approach. I'll go back to the site plan so you can kind of see that a little bit better. As I stated, we revised the management plan to remove any of the beach raking activity close to the toe of the coastal dune, so that it would be at least 10 feet away from the vegetated dune in case there's the opportunity for the vegetation, the American beach grass, to migrate towards the beach. I think, as you were able to see on site, the applicants have done a very good job in revegetating and maintaining the beach. So that's not a problem with adding beach grass to the dune, which they've been maintaining, or allowing that to migrate towards the beach. But nevertheless, we'll remove that activity so that it's at least 10 feet away from the toe of the dune. And as included in the managing sediment in that section, we'd be looking to maintain more of a from 10 feet to 50 feet, which gives us that area between the 10 feet offset and the mean high water for a length of approximately 200 feet. The area would be more of that managed beach area. Yes, we would be performing some removal of seaweed and removal of debris and removal of excess materials within the project area, but the focus of that the beach area would be within that area, as I noted, between 10 and 50 feet within a 200-foot distance. So I think we were able to provide some more detail on the depth of raking, the depths of managing the seaweed, provide some more detail to the management plan so that the commission has a little bit more required language other than what we presented originally, which I think the commission was looking for some more detail. And I know that the deposition of the material along the toe of the coastal bank was something that we discussed, and what we'd be proposing is to more veneer it out into this location, which would build up that tombolo, that the ridge of sandbar that would lead to this ledge outcrop. I can certainly provide some more detail. I think I'll turn it back to Brendan and then Adam if I'm missing anything, and then continue on.
Thanks, Brad. Brendan, did you want to add anything? I don't know if we lost Brendan. The only thing I would add is I just want to make sure that the commission understands that beach management is commonly done in Massachusetts. It is permissible under the State Act. There are specific state guidelines, which we've incorporated into our beach management plan. It's consistent with your local bylaw and your regulations. There are examples up and down the coast, including obviously Sandy Beach, which has a beach management plan, very similar. In fact, we've modeled this on that beach management plan. And I've been reviewing beach management plans in other communities. Most of them, interestingly, have to do with allowing off-road vehicle access through beach areas, which is also permissible on beaches. So I just want to give you a broad perspective that this is not unusual. I agree that this commission doesn't see this often in Cohasset, but that this is nothing novel. And the plan has been carefully tailored to comply with, as I said, state and local wetland requirements. And I just don't want that big picture to be lost here. Thank you.
Charlotte, when did we receive this plan?
Brad, this was yesterday, correct? You did
Yes,
send a
so
lot, so thank you for doing that, but
Sure.
I just don't want to misquote you on the day. I think it was yesterday.
Right. Correct. The revisions to the management plan were emailed to you yesterday.
Yeah, I was about to ask the same question. Let me just to understand. So now the plan isn't to sort of what was originally cited as important to sort of bolster the line there, but now it's to spread it out in this region instead of sort of piling it up there. Is that right, Brad?
Yes, it's still, I think that the material that's been placed there does protect the toe of the bank, and until that erodes from storm impact, there isn't a need to keep putting it there. Because we have an accreting beach in that area, as you can see, you have a narrow kind of ledge on either side. This area, which is in the velocity zone, gets more turbidity or more violent wave impacts than this beach over here. So using this area to spread the material out allows it to naturally reposition throughout the system. And if this area that was built up in the past starts to erode and we need some protection, we could look at coming back and nourishing that area. Of course, we'd be in coordination with the commission, but at this time, I think as what we could see, there isn't a need to build that up. It seems to be there protecting that toe of the bank so that this area would be more beneficial and provides a little bit more area to veneer it out.
Thanks, Brad. So I'm going to ask the other commissioners if they have thoughts now, but given the fact that we're sort of just being introduced to this Tomolo concept, which I am, other people are far better engineers and have more experience than I do, and the fact that the updated and more specific beach management plan was submitted yesterday, I would suggest that we probably continue this NOI and the discussion of the enforcement order for a couple weeks to give the commission time to review what's in front of us, given the fact that they're both tied together. But with that, Commissioner Magnell, do you have thoughts, comments, questions?
If we're going, I have thoughts, but if we're going to continue it, we can wait until then. But the primary thing I'm concerned with is it a beach management plan or a beach renovation plan?
I think that's a great way to say it.
Basically, if you're building up the Tambolo and you're taking 2 inches off the beach every year, that's modification. That's not management. That's not just managing it.
Thank you I think that sums up my thoughts on it pretty succinctly. I appreciate that, Steve. Commissioner Fernando?
Maybe a question for me, just understanding the context in which we evaluate this. I understand that we're looking at this from a geographic perspective and a topographic feature like a Tombolo. What about wildlife habitats? I wasn't able to attend the site visit. Is there in the materials any assessment of nesting habits and habitats and other wildlife that might be utilizing this area and be adversely affected by the proposed beach management plan that was just described?
The area is not within mapped habitat for rare species. It's not an area that has piping plovers that would be a concern for other beach management plans. We are proposing to leave a certain amount of rack. As you notice, there's a requirement to leave it at least, I think it's 10% of rack along the rack line to provide for that seed source and wildlife habitat. So we have accounted for that into our management plan.
What is the mechanism in which you're deciding that there's no piping plovers there?
Because it isn't mapped by Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program. If it was mapped as a habitat area, we'd have to coordinate with them. And usually beach management plans are geared towards rare species habitat, whether it be a least tern or the piping plover. But this area isn't mapped as habitat for rare species. Have I done a bird study there? No. I
didn't think that we were also limited to specific species under our Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. Is that correct? Like, it just broadly speaks of wildlife, is, at least that's my understanding.
Yes,
So-
wildlife is an interest of the act. You're correct. Improving the debris and getting the excess seaweed off the beach so that it doesn't decompose and create hazards and flies and
But aren't those
decomposition
features
issues.
of a natural habitat, like for a range of wildlife?
So Brad, I have a suggestion, and Mr. Fernando, just to be clear, there are specific activities under the State Wetlands Act which requires a wildlife habitat evaluation. None of our activities trigger any of those regulatory requirements for a wildlife habitat evaluation. But Brad, we could provide a simplified wildlife habitat evaluation to address Mr. Fernando's concern, correct?
Yeah, I'd
Yes, we
like
could
to
do that.
know what 310 CMR 1037 defines as those habitats and what protections, like it may not require you, but it does feel like that's part of our duty and mission as a commission to consider.
Actually, the commission doesn't protect under any regulation wildlife. It under certain protection of wildlife habitat is an interest protected by the act, and the regulations do, again, under certain circumstances, require an evaluation. But as I said, we'll provide you with a simplified wildlife habitat evaluation to let you know, what would be
Sure.
expected on this beach.
It
Yeah,
is
I
a
don't think
consideration. of
Commissioner
wouldn't you
Fernando
agree,
was
like-
saying just protecting wildlife. He mentioned habitat specifically as and I think there's it's a logical link there. So
Well,
sorry,
no,
I cut you off.
It's not a logical link. I mean, the regulations have very specific requirements as to what can.
But I think the
be
word
done,
is
but
additional
it's required.
consideration, like under estimated habitats for rare wildlife and coastal wetlands. I mean,
Yes, sir.
it is a consideration for us to, weigh in and evaluate the
Only-
merits of your.
Actually, you're mistaken, Mr. Fernando. Only if the area is mapped as rare or priority species habitat. It's not mapped. And again, I've got the regulation in front of me. That regulation is not relevant to this analysis. So again, we're happy to answer your generalized concern because your bylaw does have more specific requirements for wildlife habitat. We'll provide you with an evaluation to address your concern. But I just want to make clear that, to Brad's point, there's no MESA requirements here that require that level of analysis.
Yeah, and I'll just note our regs, it's section 28.
Yep.
Section 28D, I believe, in terms of we don't acknowledge under our bylaw regs a threshold for wildlife habitat. So I can look at the exact language, but we do differ a little bit by referencing those sections in the Wetlands Protection Act, and yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
think I'm
I
getting
agree with
hung
Ms.
up on the
Pectel.
mapping, Adam, like if there is evidence of the rare wildlife in the area, I think that triggers it or supersedes any like mapping you might have done or study you might propose. Like, have we established like there's no evidence in this area?
No one has seen plovers in this area, Mr. Fernando. And again, plovers have been
But
seen
that's
in
because
other
of your
areas of
mapping.
Cohasset.
Like have we actually had someone look for them?
I could, unfortunately, Mr. Brand, who's the property manager, who's there on a regular basis, is not available this evening. He would be the only one to be able to give you that information, but I don't know how we prove a negative. If something's not map habitat, we're under no requirement to have someone observe the site on throughout the year on the off chance that some rare bird species shows up. So we can
Well, if a
let
site
that-
supports rare species or contains critical habitat characteristics, doesn't the burden shift to you? Like if it can support the piping plover and protection can still apply?
So the answer to the question is that we have a regulatory program under MESA that regulates land areas which have been identified by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as habitat for rare and endangered species. And that's the rubric. Ms. Pectel is correct. Under your local regulations, you have or general wildlife habitat protection. And as I've said, I'm going to propose that we provide you with a wildlife habitat evaluation to specifically address your concern. But I don't think that your section 28 somehow places the burden on us to prove the non-existence of rare species. It's just not possible to do.
Well, so hold on. Let's just take a step back for a second, because I think what we're now doing is saying that, you know, the state law may not apply, or the state CMR doesn't apply, but the local bylaw and local regulations authorized under the bylaw do actually, you know, apply. And it sounds like, Adam, you have agreed to provide us with information that will address section 28 of the regulations. And so, Sanjay, I'm not cutting you off, please continue, but it seems like we're going back and forth on something that I think Sanjay has a valid point here, is that there needs to be some analysis, whether it's under state law or local regulations. Does that sound
No,
fair?
again, I don't mean to be difficult on this issue. But this commission can't place the burden on an applicant for every notice of intent to prove that there is no use of the property for rare and endangered species. You'd have to ask every applicant, the pool project applicant. You'd have to ask them to prove that there's no observation of rare or endangered species. So I'm suggesting, as a practical matter, it's unworkable. That's why it's not really required by the regulations.
Well, let's take a step back from that. So not every applicant, you know, spent a couple years raking their beach and destroying the habitat before asking permission, and then it's coming in and asking permission to continue doing what they've been doing, and sort of try to, you know, ignore the analysis under our regulations. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with a pool project. Adam,
I'm going to disagree.
You mentioned that this was a common thing, but your one example was Sandy Beach, and your other example was off-road vehicles on beaches. What other private beaches? And I know we talked about this last time. Private isn't necessarily an issue, but given that this is common, where else? What other landowners are doing this, raking their beaches like this? Where have, I mean, Cohasset's a beach town. Where have we previously approved work like this? Where has it happened? And yeah, go ahead.
Well, again,
other than Sandy Beach.
You want me to do a survey in Massachusetts of
You said you did.
owners who have done?
No, you said you did. You said this was common.
I can add
That's
in.
what you started out with. So I'm curious, where is it common? Like when
I can certainly add in. We've permitted beach raking and beach management activities at the Craigville Beach. I can get a copy of the permit for that. That was years ago. We also
Craigville down in
developed
the
the
Cape?
beach. Yes, down in Centerville, down in
Yeah.
Barnstable. We also prepared a beach management plan for Whitehorse Beach in Plymouth that had several activities like this, beach nourishment, additional activities. I could provide the commission with a copy of that management plan. So those are two that come to my mind that I've been involved in.
I think we've also established by fact that you have been raking this for a certain amount of time. I'm just wondering how many habitats have already previously been destroyed. So even if there is no evidence, or Adam, your argument is like everyone has to show up with evidence, you've actively been destroying the habitats.
So I respectfully disagree. There's no evidence that we've destroyed habitat. We raked the beach, which is not an unusual activity. It has not been identified as rare species habitat. We're not altering, we're not changing the topography of the beach. We're not impairing.
If there's a nest on the beach, raking.
Can I finish, please?
Is that what you're arguing? I mean, like, come on.
I'm sorry?
If there was a nest on the beach when you ran the rake over it, that wouldn't have been destroying a habitat?
Again, you want me to argue against something that there's no.
And you want me to argue
evidence
the opposite side? Like we're at an impasse. I'll agree.
We're having a semantic argument. I mean, you can make this argument with every single wetland.
I can make the argument with your argument very serious. Like you said, you raked the beach, but there's no evidence that you destroyed a habitat. I'm saying I'm throwing the argument right back at you. How can you say that you're raking a beach and not destroying a habitat?
Again, I'm focused on rare and endangered species. This area has not been mapped. The state diligently tracks species like piping plover. When a plover is identified, as was done, not this season, I don't think it was last season.
2023, actually, right after the
2023.
beach maintenance plan was, of course, approved.
Right. So when a piping plover was observed on Sandy Beach, all activities stopped. And there's been a request to modify the beach management plan. That's how it's done in the ordinary instance. So all
Okay,
I can
but
tell you is what the
in the
regulatory
interest of
world
moving this along,
requires. for this.
let's see what some other commissioners have. Commissioner McIntyre.
Yeah, I have a few things to just discuss. First of all, yeah, I haven't really had a chance to look through the revised beach management plan, but I just want to note that regarding the habitat impacts, the machine was purchased approximately, according to the caretaker, back in like 2021, 2022. And you can see now that we know where it was stored, this is the sorry. Here's the beach here, and then here we go. Here's the machine. And as the years go by, it's much easier just to cut across the marsh and the vegetation until, the current conditions. So one thing I want to specify is the access point in the plan. The other thing is, just to back way up, what's the purpose of this whole plan? Like, why, besides the smelly, why does it need to be such a large area for to be raked? Like why does it have to be the whole thing? Is it aesthetic? Is it simply the smell? Because one of the things that I don't agree with is the removal of the stone, because a cobble beach is a type of habitat, and to alter it for aesthetics, just like we can't protect a marsh for aesthetics, we shouldn't allow something because of aesthetics. And beyond that, the cobbles are functional. They protect, they serve part of the they're part of the system, and they absorb energy just as the rack is, the seaweed. It's habitat. And the plan right now is just, it seems to me that there's no time limits, there's no seasonal considerations for potential migratory birds. It's up to them. It seems like there's no limitation in terms of how often. It just as needed. There's no seasonal considerations. There's no extent in terms of, why do they have to do the whole beach? Why can't they just do a portion of it, leave some of it natural? And the removal of stone, as I say, I don't agree with it. I think the stone is functional, and I think the seaweed is as well.
So I'll defer to the technical team. I just want to be clear that we are not proposing what was done in the past. This is a much smaller scale activity, and we've provided very specific requirements for that. We've addressed how often this is going to be done, when during the year it's going to be done. We're not proposing to remove cobbles, and cobbles are large cobble stones of the size that would be used to create cobble roads. And I did some research on this. We're not proposing to remove
I don't think
cobbles. We are proposing to deal with the smaller material. All of it stays within the same system.
Let me cut you off for a second, Adam, because we're going to continue this because we haven't had a chance to review it. But I would suggest that you take a look at under the managing sediments #2 of the new beach management plan. It does say we'll focus on the collection of gravel and cobbles, and you're scraping off 2 inches of the beach whenever you feel appropriate. So, specifically, you just said we're not going to be removing cobbles, and just by quick perusal of the updated management plan says you are. So
we're not removing any of this material from the beach system.
We're moving it.
We are moving some of the material. We're not moving all of the material. But
we're
happy to specify this.
I want to do this. For the enforcement order and this NOI, I would entertain a vote. Well, we don't have to, well, let's go through the rest of the commissioners, but I don't think we need to, I think the best thing for you guys to do would be to hear our concerns, give us a chance to review what you've done. Maybe the concerns that we're expressing now have been included already in the updated beach management plan. And that's going to be fine. And that will be the resolution. But instead of going back and forth and addressing each one, I would suggest that somebody from the, from Whitehead team, and with Charlotte always does, and Mindy's on too, we're going to take notes on each commissioner's concerns, and hopefully they get addressed in a couple of weeks when we come back and we've had a chance to review this. And if there isn't a further update based on what you hear tonight, because we're not taking a vote, we're not being convinced, we haven't had a chance to take in all the information yet, then please give it to us a week in advance so that we can have an opportunity to review it for next time. So Chris, did you have other things that you want to bring up?
Yeah, I mean, just back to my initial, like, what's the main rationale for this plant? Like, is it just the seaweed, the smell is, because or is it aesthetic? Like, I don't see a good argument for doing this, honestly.
So that's a specific concern that might be addressed. Maybe it already is because we haven't had a chance to review, but the overall rationale and potentially as a method of getting the commission on board with what's being proposed is maybe limiting the size of the beach that we want to turn into pure sand, as opposed to leaving it in its natural state so that we'd be more amenable to the proposal. Commissioner Magnell?
That's fine with me.
Commissioner Berrigan?
I agree with what you proposed, Val.
Commissioner Fernando?
Yeah, I think this is we've got to all move forward together, but I think my concerns have been expressed.
Okay. So with that, let's take this NOI and the enforcement order, and from what you've heard, Brendan, Brad, Adam, do you have significant rewrites to do, or do you need more than 2 weeks? Should we hear this again in 2 weeks? Just have us have an opportunity to review what's already been resubmitted. What would you like?
At this point, I've asked to be put on for the next meeting. I'm going to be burdening Brad to prepare a wildlife habitat evaluation at that time. Hopefully we can get it done in 2. I don't think there's any substantive material, additional material that we need to provide. We've addressed a lot of these concerns, but we can focus the additional material on Mr. Fernando's concern regarding the existence of wildlife habitat.
Commissioner Romano, I don't know if this is the right venue or moment to propose it, but could we also consider an independent peer review of the wildlife assessment?
I think we could. It's certainly within our purview to ask for a peer review. It's they can refuse, and we can potentially take a vote without that information. I think if I was on the Whitehead team and I was listening to this commission, I would be taking it very seriously if we actually expect this NOI to get approved as to convincing the commissioners. And I don't know certainly there's always the opportunity to attempt to sort of bully or litigate your way into what you want, but I don't think that's going to be a win for anyone. So I'd be listening very carefully to what you've heard come out of virtually all of our mouths here tonight, and see how we can make this something that satisfies our various concerns. Because right now it doesn't seem like it's happening to me, but I'm just listening to everybody. So I wouldn't take this particularly lighthearted and chuckle about what standards are appropriate and what are not. I think that's obviously our obligation, but I don't think this is funny. I think this is it seems like a large area, as Commissioner McIntyre pointed out. It seems like scraping off 2 inches of what includes cobble and moving it to a different part of the beach, whatever you feel is appropriate. It seems like asking a lot. I think we're concerned for various wildlife and other various wildlife habitat that may be impacted and has been impacted for years now. We certainly see from Commissioner McIntyre's view of the path from where that cart, or whatever we're calling it, was stored, was certainly just driven over that dune until that path was just sort of made there, and that was scarred. And who knows what was driven over during the years where that was just sort of done haphazardly. So let's take this pretty seriously if there's any chance of getting this approved, because it's I don't know, it looks like it's a tall order right now. So that's my 2 cents. So with that, let's come back on May 15th for this one. Now let's take
Before you take a
Yes.
vote, I just want to ask.
Oh, we
the
weren't going to
commission-
vote, Brad. We were going to.
I'm sorry, to continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to address Commissioner Magnell's comment. He was concerned about the 2-inch sediment relocation, and we did include in the option, and I just wanted to get your position on this, that there's a potential for beach nourishment. We could add beach nourishment to nourish the beach. We did include that as our potential option for 4. And if the commission thinks that that would be something that we should pursue, we're happy to provide some more detail on that. But I just, before we close the book on this for the next meeting, I wanted to throw that out there. If the commission thinks that that would be something we should look further into, because that would be supportive of the beach, then we would do that. But if the commission doesn't think that that would be something that would support this proposal, then we'll keep it as a potential option.
Is there a reason why, Brad? I mean, didn't you say that this is an accreting beach already? I mean, I can imagine.
That's correct. It is.
It's like a bunch of white sand from the Bahamas brought shipped up and dumped on there.
I mean,
It would have to be a compatible sand material to what's on the beach. The purpose of this ask was, I don't want to give you more detail at the next meeting if the commission doesn't want to see it, but if the commission wants to see it, it gives us an opportunity to get you some more data.
Steve?
It's not a sandy beach. When we went down there, it was definitely not a sandy beach. And the proposal says a veneer of clean sand. That seems to be the same thing. You're taking a rocky beach and turning it into a sandy beach if you do that. That's not, I don't think that's a 1-for-1 replacement of what's there. And I don't understand how you would, certainly from the way it's been managed so far, that seems to be the reason for doing this beach, is to convert it into a nice smooth beach when it isn't really a nice smooth beach. It's a rocky beach and it accretes over the years. And you're right, it is accreting, but every time you pull stuff off and change the composition there, because what you're doing when you do that, take those 2 inches off, you're taking all the large pieces off, because that's what the machine will grab. And they get piled in. You're changing the other part of the beach by building up this stony area in the center, which prevents movement from one side of the rocky island to the other. I'm not sure that yet. The side effect is it may also protect that shoreline a bit, but it doesn't protect the beach shoreline.
Thank you, Steve. So I think, Brad, to answer your question, I think anything you can come up with that would help us to look favorably upon this would be useful. Now, if that's beach nourishment, which it sounds like may not necessarily add value given the fact that it is an accreting beach, but at the same time, anything you like, for me, I certainly am a long way from feeling like this, fits what is being labeled as a beach management plan. I'd look forward to, taking a look at the 2 that you worked on, Brad. If you could send those, feel free to redact any information that you think needs to be redacted. I imagine they're part of the public record in those towns anyway, so there's probably nothing that would be protected, but should you want to redact anything, feel free to. That being said, I would like to see them. I certainly have fished for albies off those beaches, at least one of those beaches, and I know the areas, and I'd love to. I don't recall them being turned into complete sandy beaches like seems to be the goal here. But that being said, let's take a look at those, and maybe we'll have them as a frame of reference, because when I hear this is a common thing, but we don't have any other examples of it happening other than one beach in Cohasset, it certainly doesn't sound that common to me. So I'd be happy to take a look at those, and I certainly will. Just please get them to us like as far ahead of time as you can, so we don't have to keep continuing this.
Sure. And I think I did one on Moshup Beach and New Seabury, and I'll get that one as well.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Okay, so now, so is that our, unless there's any further, sort of objection or discussion, and I think this is really a time for us to, to download as much info of our concerns and maybe, options for getting this thing approved, as we can. But if there is nothing further that we can, give guidance and help to getting this approved to the applicant, let's continue this, both the enforcement order and the NOI to May 15th.
If I could, Mr. Chair, if I just had one.
Yeah, of course.
So as far as the volume of the raking that's coming off of the beach, the area of raking we have is approximately 25,000 square feet. So according to Scott, there's about when we visited the hopper of a raking machine, it's about a 1 cubic yard within the hopper, and he said he empties that between 15 and 20 times when he does the raking. So that's about 15 or 20 cubic yards. 19 yards of cubic yards to be removed from that 25,000 square foot area is 1/4 of an inch in depth. Basically the width of a pencil. So that's the depth that we're talking about. So when we're raking 2 inches, yeah, the tines might go down 2 inches, but we're not taking all that material off the beach. So just to put that in perspective, we're not taking off 2 inches of material, we're raking. As you rake, you don't rake the entire, 2 inches. The tines go into the substrate 2 inches. So just to put that in perspective, the area, the volume of material raked is about 19 cubic yards.
Well, there's those holes. Aren't there holes in the bottom of it so that the sand would fall through, presumably, and only the rocks would remain?
Exactly. Yep. But then the stones and the seaweed goes into the back hopper, and that is dumped, on the edge of the beach, which he has done. And which is, so he says he makes about 15, 20 dumps every time he cleans the beach, which comes to approximately, or exactly 19.2 cubic yards of material, over 25,000 square feet. And it's 1/4 of an inch.
A couple of things. One is, do we know definitively that the back of that hopper is 1 cubic yard? I thought that was unclear when we were there, and nobody actually had the answer for how much that holds.
I mean, I measured it myself. I think it's approximately 4 feet wide, and it's about a cubic yard.
So if it's if it's over 30%, that brings us up, fairly significantly. And then also, and this might work in your favor, I thought, the original amount of beach coverage that was being raked was closer to 75,000 square feet. Where did I get that number? I'm just not opening everything up again right now, but that was, yeah.
That might have been the area down to mean low tide. From mean high water to the 10-foot off of the beach dune is approximately 25,000 square feet.
So if he was raking at low tide, he was also doing down, much more.
Yeah, that might have been where the 75 came from. 75 seems a bit much because that's 3 times.
That was definitely somewhere in our original, but I think the original enforcement order, or but I'll have to look at it again. But
Brendan, I was just curious.
No, that's useful.
Just on that point, I'm just trying to understand the context. So 19 cubic yards, how many tons of sand is that?
19 cubic yards is approximately, in a ton, there's about, in a cubic yard is about 1.5 tons of gravel or sand.
Well, it's not, but the little sand is left behind. It's the larger stones, the cobbles, and the seaweed that are collected.
And it's also seaweed as well. So seaweed takes up a little bit of room in the hopper as well. So
I'm not in engineering, so it's like about 19 tons of material is basically being displaced from the beach,
right,
under this plan.
Yep.
Okay. So with that, let's continue continue both the NOI and the enforcement order to May 15th. Let me see. So should we talk about the floats? I'll read the notices. One moment, please, guys. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, May 1st, 2025 for NOI 2510 to install an additional seasonal float to the existing seasonal float system at 100 Whitehead Road. The public has been invited to offer input by emailing cpectol@cohassetma.gov. Details for access to the Zoom platform are on the Conservation Commission agenda online on the town website. So take it away, guys. Tell us about the additional float.
Thank you, Chair Romano. A good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Adam Brodsky, and I represent the Kingsbourne Trust, the owner and applicant. I'm here with Brendan Sullivan, our professional engineer, and Brad Holmes, our professional wetland scientist. And this is an after-the-fact notice of intent to permit an additional float that would be connected to an existing pier, gangway, and float system at the property to better protect the boat from the elements because it's an area of open fetch. The structures other than this additional float, this flow were previously authorized. This flow was put in the water, I believe, last season without authorization. And so we're seeking an order of conditions to allow the additional float. We will also have to go through additional permitting through Mass DEP under the Chapter 91 Waterways Program, as well as likely have to file a self-verification eligibility under the general permit with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So Brendan, do you just want to describe this, please?
Sure.
I have the plan handy, Brendan, if that helps.
Yeah, well,
You got it?
if you could take that over, Brad, that'd be great. My
Sure.
computer's not working for me tonight entirely.
Here's the plan.
So, so the existing concrete pier and seasonal ramp in the 30 by 15 seasonal float was all approved under license number as stated there, 11694, back in 2010-ish. CIDRA compliance and Chapter 91 license as well. What we're proposing is the seasonal float 10 by 30 feet that kind of goes off the end of the existing float there is there's a strong fetch from the northeast that comes over towards the Glades and Situate. It causes, and the proximity between the fetch and the channel, it does get a little bit of wave action there. So they were looking to store the boat. The boat would go on the lee side of the float and protect it from some of the wind and wave action.
Thanks,
And,
Brendan.
Brendan, this float is just being connected to the existing structures. There are no additional bottom anchors or any impacts to land under ocean, correct?
That is correct. The existing float, the seasonal 15 by 30 float is connected by helical lanyards that connect to the substrate that hold that in place. So this float will just be connected to that.
Oh, Brendan, can you clarify that, like under 4 in the project narrative, it sounds like the swim float will be held in place with the bottom anchor?
That's a separate project, Mr. Fernando.
Sorry, Sandy, that's the next NOI. I know there's a few things. As soon as we're cleaning up we're cleaning everything up now, basically. Yeah.
Just to maybe get context, so this float is connected to that float, or
yes,
each float? Okay. All right.
This float's connected to the licensed float and pier system for the boat at this property. The swim float is another location and a separate notice of intent.
Oh, okay. Oh, so the float it's connected to is not the one we're going to look at next. It's a different float.
No, sir. So this is just one additional float that's added to the existing licensed system to better protect the boat at 100 Whitehead. The swim float is at the other property at 90.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Charlotte, before we go through the rest of the commissioners, do you have any thoughts or things that we should be considering?
Yeah, just one, and I know we had just gotten these letters. We got a letter from Division of Marine Fisheries. Brad, I'm not sure if I was looking at it on Mass Mapper, but they had mentioned that the proposed additional float lies within historic eelgrass meadow, and so they were suggesting as avoid eelgrass given the vulnerability to direct and indirect impacts of float installation. DMF recommends avoidance as the best strategy for floats and associated anchors. Terminal floats should be located at least 7.5 meters, approximately 25 feet from the edge of the existing historically mapped eelgrass. So I was trying to look at the plan and look at where the mapped eelgrass habitat was. I'm not sure if you had time to do that, but that was the comment we received from DMF, and then we did not receive any comments from DEP for this.
Mr. Peckel, it's unclear to me that DMF understood that this float is not going to require any additional anchors. Whatever anchors are in place have already been licensed and permitted. So this float simply floats on the surface. So there should be no impacts whatsoever if there is any eelgrass out there.
Yeah, they said terminal floats should be located at least 25 feet from the edge of existing or historically mapped eelgrass in the letter.
Let me just short circuit this for a second. The DMF letter, just like the letter in the last hearing, came in yesterday. I would suggest that the commissioners have an opportunity to review the letter and we continue this to May 15th.
Can I add one more thing, Commissioner Romano? Like, as you come back with this, maybe you could just specify for any of the floats, if they're seasonal, how they'll be removed at the end of the season. I think, just, I don't want to be cryptic about it. I think we've talked about not storing them in protected habitats and not transporting them over protected habitats.
Mr. Fernando, we can never store this on any salt marsh or in any wetland resource area. These are towed into place and stored off-site, I believe. Is that correct, Brad and Brendan?
Correct.
Yes, I believe they're stored over by the Cohasset Yacht Club at the end of Parker Road.
And is this a true float? It doesn't, at low tide, it doesn't touch the bottom.
Yeah, there's a good depth of water underneath the float. Brendan probably knows better than I do. That's a pretty deep area there.
Yeah, it is. It drops off pretty significantly after you get to the low water mark, which shown on the plan, about halfway down the ramp.
So unless there's an objection, or let's quickly see if there's any other commissioners want to chime in to give any direction. Given the fact this doesn't touch the bottom, it's going to be tied on to an existing approved float. I think we want to look at the DMF information. See, it doesn't seem like from looking at the plans it necessarily would affect fish swimming by, whatever, that adversely. So but I would like an opportunity to review all the information that's in front of us. And so with that, Commissioner Berrigan, do you have any other questions right now?
No questions right now. I'd like to review it also.
Sanji, did you have anything else?
No, not this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Magnell?
No, Charlotte addressed my concern there.
Commissioner McIntyre?
Same, yeah, just the eelgrass habitat, it's mapped on the Mass ArcGIS, not Mass Mapper, but there's a separate map that has a layer of historically mapped eelgrass, and both of these, this and the next project, seem to be. This one, I don't know if it may be just outside the 25-foot edge, but
that's what I was thinking for this one. That's why I just didn't know if Brad or anybody had looked at it and said, oh no, it's actually not anywhere near that area.
I can share quickly if that would help.
Sure, if that would help.
I did look at that, and the terminal float is already there. What they're worried about is that you'd be adding seaward, so that the project doesn't go seaward. And when it comes to eelgrass, we do a lot of eelgrass surveys for projects on the Cape. Haven't done any necessarily in the South Shore, but the eelgrass is not a rare species or a protected species, but Division of Marine Fisheries and others looks for protection where possible. So in the DEP small dock and pier guidance, it states that if you have a mapped eelgrass bed, that they look for you to put your float more than 2 feet of water. So they're looking for your float to be at least 2 feet or more of water under your float at low tide. I think it might be 4. I'd have to pull up the small dock and pier guidance, but it isn't something that is prohibited. I have never seen Division of Marine Fisheries talk about if it was a mapped or historically mapped. As you look through the eelgrass mapping, and there's lots of areas that are mapped in like 1995, and as you go through the years, they just diminish. So typically we'll do an eelgrass survey on projects for new piers and floats. And if there is eelgrass, we'll have to keep that distance of the float above the eelgrass to meet the DEP small dock and pier guidance. But with this having an existing float at the end and just adding on to it, I think that we're meeting Division of Marine Fisheries guidance there by not adding a terminal float closer to the. I guess what they're asking for is historically mapped, which I don't know if there is none there or historically mapped. But as you see, in 1995 it was there, and it isn't there in the later years.
Okay. I think let's have a chance for the rest of us to take a look at that, and we'll come back in a couple weeks, or let's keep Commissioner Magnell. Did I ask you also?
You did.
Yep. I think we're set on this one. Should we go on to the next one? I'll read the next public hearing. Is the 15th good for you guys? I guess we're all going to be here anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
One moment. I'm sorry, guys. I'm a little slow tonight. I have a freshly installed computer. It's not set up the way I am used to. In accordance with MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing and is holding one tonight, Thursday, May 1st, 2025 at 9:37 for NOI 2511 to address the placement of a seasonal swim float on a mooring at 90 Whitehead Road. The public has been invited to offer input by emailing cpectel@cohassetma.gov. Details for access to the Zoom platform are on the commission's agenda online. So that is so the hearing for 25-11 is now open.
Thank you, Chair Romano. Again, simply so the record's clear, my name is Adam Brodsky, and I represent the Kingsbourne Trust, which is the landowner and applicant. I'm here with Brendan Sullivan, our professional engineer, as well as Brad Holmes, our professional wetland scientist. This swim float was actually not the subject of the enforcement order, but when reviewing the property, we realized that it had not been permitted. And so we've essentially self-reported this and filed a notice of intent to authorize this swim float, which is located off of the beach at 90 Whitehead Road. There's presently it's presently a seasonal bottom anchored float. There's an anchor in place for which we're seeking authorization. This will not need a Chapter 91 license because we're proposing to authorize it seasonally with a Section 10A permit through the Harbor Master. So with that very short introduction, I'll turn this over to Brad and Brendan to explain this notice. Thank you.
I'll share my screen and pull up the plan. Let's see. Here is the 90 Whitehead is right over here. 100 is over here. This is the location. Just here's mean low water, mean high water somewhere here. And I was told there's about 5 feet of water at low tide under the location of the 10 by 10 removable float, and similar to the other float system, it's barged in and taken out at the end of the season. It isn't brought in and dragged over the property. It's within land under the ocean as a resource area, and very similar to the other float. the same, similar conditions as we just discussed.
So we have the same eelgrass issue and the same note or similar note from DMF, is that right?
Yes,
But this one is going to be anchored.
the anchor is already in place.
Yeah, but this one is anchored,
Yes.
but previously not approved, not
Correct.
disapproved, but just not sought approval. I mean, I would suggest the same thing. Let's give us a chance to review the eelgrass issue, the letter from DMF for this as well, since we're all going to be back and we all have a bunch of homework to do, or at least us as commissioners do, to consider the various projects, and the fact that we do have a new issue raised by DMF. That would be my suggestion, is to treat this the same way we did the last one. And I appreciate. I just want to say personally, I know there's a little bit of friction here on the enforcement order, but I do appreciate the property owner coming forward and just sort of getting everything permitted and cleaned up. Now that there's some sort of scrutiny on what's going on there, so I think that's going to be helpful once it's all done. So I appreciate that from a commissioner standpoint. Charlotte, is there anything else we should be considering before my suggestion to continue this for 2 weeks?
For this one, no. I do know the harbor master wanted to know what Concom's decision was going to be for the swim float before she issues a 10A. So Adam, I'm not sure if you had any recent conversations with her, but that was what she had initially communicated to me. So I just don't know if that's changed. And, I think if an order were to be issued, I think that could be a condition. So that was my only comment for that, other than the DMF thing that we just got yesterday.
Ms. Peck
Thanks,
is
Charlotte.
correct. The harbor master will not issue a 10A permit
Oh,
without
okay.
the order of conditions in place.
Okay.
And in fact, just again, and Chair Romano, thank you. I mean, I just want to remind the commission that we've never contested any of the violations. And so there's no friction. We recognize that there are violations. We may have disagreement regarding the relevant performance standards for approval of certain activities, but these were clearly things that should not have happened. And we made that clear, early on, I think when I first appeared before the commission on this one. With respect to the boat float, I did discuss with the harbor master also issuing a 10A permit for that float in the interim, because we need to go to Chapter 91 and license, again, amend the existing license for that float. That's going to take a number of months, but we can, in the interim, license it under its Chapter 91, Section 10A with an annual permit. So at least that the homeowners, if you grant an order of conditions, can put the float in the water and have the use of the float for the boating season. So that's the goal.
Thanks, Adam. Commissioner Berrigan, anything before we continue this?
No.
Commissioner Fernando?
None, thank you. And thanks for the kind comments.
Commissioner Magnell? Steve, you still there? You're muted. Commissioner McIntyre?
Yeah, just on the swim float, so just to be clear, the anchor that's used there is not previously like an approved boat mooring. It's a new system altogether. Is that correct?
I believe I put
Yeah,
it.
we have not found any authorization for that float.
And is it an actual anchor or is it a mooring? Or like a block, or what's it anchored by, and what's it fastened by? Is it a chain or is it rope?
Let's see, I did get the detail. There's already an existing pyramid mooring anchor, 24 by 24 by 24 inch pyramid mooring anchor in place. And then they connect the chain or a rope from that existing mooring to the float.
So one of the things that I would be interested in is there's with the tidal fluctuations, the chains are disruptive and damage eelgrass. It is mapped right where that float is. I don't know current conditions. I was trying to discern what was there based on near map, but it's hard to tell. It changes. But the chain and the, you know, I'm sure you know, Brad, it scores like a circle where the float goes around when it's low tide. So considerations for the types of systems that avoid that. I think there's like they have designs where they, you know, the chain doesn't rest on the eelgrass and tear it up.
We can look into that. I know what you're saying. There's
Floating.
even bungee cord systems like that might be applicable.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Chris. Commissioner Magnell, any other this on the swim float before we continue it?
No, I think Chris addressed my question as well.
Great. So from the Whitehead team, is there anything that any objection to continuing this to May 15th?
No, thank you.
So
Sure, you
let's do
guys know
that.
that's going to be a long night.
It is going to be a long night, but
Yep.
that makes it more fun.
Just as long as they're aware.
Let's continue this to May. I mean, yeah, I mean, they're all going to be here. I don't want to the extent that we can avoid making the applicant pay to have all of their engineers and wetland scientists and attorney come 2 nights. If we're going to knock it all out in one, I think it's fair to them to try to do our best to persevere. Okay, great. Let's revisit this on May 15th as well. So this is continued until then.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all for your time.
Have a good night. Thanks.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
So the show cause was continued, and so the last thing, there's a certificate of compliance for NOI 23-27 at 68 Nichols Road. Charlotte, this is work that was not done, is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So this was a notice of intent that was submitted for a small, I don't know if it was a plunge pool, but it was a small pool in the front of the property, within existing, patio space. We did do a pre-construction visit but I just drove by the site today, and no work was done. So I don't know what happened between the pre-construction visit. It's just, I don't know if I forget if the COC specifies, but yeah, the work was it just never happened. And the site is in its existing condition before the permit was issued. Just to note that there was an RDA that was submitted for the rear of the property for redoing a pervious deck structure. That work has been completed, but as you guys know, there's no formal process for RDAs. I just wanted to let you know that RDA work looks like it was completed. The site's fully stabilized. So yeah, in terms of this order, there were no special conditions that obviously would pertain at this point. So yeah, no work was done. So you can issue a COC for, an invalid or order conditions just specifying that the work was never completed. And the applicant has communicated obviously with me in writing that he does not want to do the work. So he's fine with the permit being closed.
Okay, so we're basically just doing this procedurally to close it out.
Yeah, and with these kinds of orders,
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to have our standard number 40 ongoing condition,
No.
especially since it's an
Yeah.
invalid permit,
You don't need any conditions.
It's already in our regs that they can't do herbicide stuff anyway, so.
Yeah, so with that, I'd make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for NOI 23-27 for 68 Nichols Road for work that was never completed and currently is no intent, and there's no intention to complete it. And should they wish to do this or similar work, they would have to come back before us with a new NOI. Do I have a second?
Second.
I think a voice vote would be fine. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that's issued unanimously. That's closed out. With that, I think that ends any public portion of our hearing tonight. Anybody's obviously welcome if you're still on to stick around and listen to sort of some of our internal conversations with agent updates from Charlotte and Mindy. But with that, go ahead, Charlotte.
Well, I was going to ask you guys, it is kind of late, Sanjay. I know you kind of wanted to jump off, so none of these updates are urgent. Do you guys want me to just potentially put them on for the next time, or?
Yeah, I mean, let's see how they go. If there's anything that absolutely has to be discussed between now and the 29th, do that, or 30, but other than that, because it may be late next time too, we might say, hey, let's not talk about these.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I'll just say really briefly, 24 Little Harbor Road is ongoing with restoration work, and you guys are welcome to go to the site. Just let me know if you want to go, so I can just coordinate, make the homeowners aware. I think the work is going really well based on they're following all the conditions that we put in place. This was a coastal bank restoration invasive species project. 53 Windy Hill, that was a addition project. They just they are ready to start soon, and they'll contact me for the erosion barrier. The sewer lining project, that was for climate resiliency of putting in the better sleeving and lining, and that work is pretty much all done. They do need to redo some of the catch basin covers. And the 91 Atlantic Ave, that was physically raising a home to be above the floodplain. They're pretty much done. Stormwater's installed. They just have to finish mitigation planting. So, yeah.
Great. That was a quick run through.
Yep. Try to be really brief.
You can hear my dog snoring in the background. I don't know. I apologize. So with that, if there's nothing else, Charlotte, was there, unless you had also 48-hour updates, I'd make a motion to adjourn and thank everybody for their time tonight.
I just want
Oh, sorry, Chris. Yeah.
I'm going to be traveling the next 2 meetings.
Okay.
So
Oh, brutal.
sorry to miss next one.
So you're traveling 5:15 and 6:05, Chris?
Yes.
Just writing that down.
No.
Okay.
Sorry, are we not meeting on the 29th?
Nope. Nope.
Oh.
Just 2 meetings a month. So you'll
Okay.
just be gone for 5:15 for our, yeah.
And we'll be
Okay.
up for 6.
So that would leave, so
Tom will just have to catch up.
Tom will have to mull it in,
Yep.
stuff that he missed tonight.
Yeah.
Was there anything new that what was there anything new that was continued? Because he can't mull it in if he misses the first.
No, you can't miss the first one. You can only miss one though.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes, Tom should be good. We can catch him up.
Okay. All right, Chris, we're gonna miss you. With that, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, voice vote?
Oh, aye.
Oh, yeah, aye. So that passes unanimously. The Conservation Commission hearing for May 1st, 2025 is now closed. Thanks for all your time tonight, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks.
guys. Have a good night. Sanji, good travels
you.
tomorrow. Chris, have a good
Thanks.
trip.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thanks,
Sure.
guys. Take care. Bye.